Okay,
Thank you. Welcome to the Wareham Conservation Commission meeting of Wednesday, February 2nd, 2022. We have Michael, Carol, Denise, Ron, Alyssa, Sandy, and Agent Dave Pichette. It could be a little noisy. My husband's in the other room on a FinCom meeting, so we're going to have dual Zooms. Before we start the meeting, I'm going to announce that we have some continuations in case there's anybody here for the following. Continental Capital Partners for 5 Butlers Cove Road, as for a continuance. Town of Wareham for Heinz Field continued. Warren Q0QOZB continued. Wareham MA3 Faring Hill continued. We have the Wareham PV 0 Route 25 continued. George Barrett continued, and Dana Levy and Denise Long continued. We do have two hearings that were continued until today, but they were left off the agenda in error. Therefore, we will not be discussing RESI, being the Robin Wood project, or Nelson. And I just got notified that the AG has approved Article 19, part of it, from fall town meeting. That says that we must continue in Zoom. Selectmen, zoning, conservation, planning, and the Board of Health will have to continue in Zoom.
I think I got it, but I can't get that sound up. How do I get the sound?
All right, so
No, it's gonna be.
I just wanted to let you know, folks, that we're going to be Zooming based on the approval of that Article 19 from fall town meeting. Okay, now for the hearings, you want to, Alyssa, you going to read them?
Shirley, you're going to tell us who's here and who's not?
I thought I did. Michael, Carol, Denise,
Oh, you know
Ron.
what? I just ignored that. That's okay. It's a notice of public hearing pursuant to the provisions of the Massachusetts Wetland Protection Act, General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Wareham Wetland Protected Bylaw, Division 6. A public hearing will be held on Wednesday, February 2nd, 2022 at 6:30 p.m. on the request for determination of applicability of Paula M. McKean, care of Sharon Associates, 323 Neck Road, Rochester, Mass. 02770. To upgrade a septic system located on Assessor's Map 99, Lot 1039, 1156 Main Street, Wareham, Mass.
Thank you. Is there anybody here representing this project? Please
Yes, good
identify
evening,
yourself.
Madam Chairman, this is Rick
Yes.
Sharon from Sharon Associates Engineers.
Okay, thank you, Rick. Mr. Pichette will read to the project and then we'll ask you for your comments.
Yes.
Okay, so this project is at 1156 Main Street, and this project involves upgrading a septic system in the buffer zone to bordering vegetated wetland at this site. The existing old system is to be replaced with a new Title V nitrogen reducing system. The new leach field would be approximately 65 feet from the edge of the wetland. And there's also a new septic tank is to be installed as well. Hay bales and silt fence would be installed between the work and the resource area. Again, this is a septic upgrade, so I would recommend the issuance of the approval for this project.
-2?
3,
Thank you.
Why 3-day?
because it's within the buffer zone to the wetland.
Yeah.
All right, questions, Michael?
No
I'm
questions.
sorry. Rick, did you have any comment on this project before I ask questions of the board?
I just want to add that we met earlier this afternoon, 5 o'clock with the Board of Health, and they approved the plan as it's shown. Just a minor correction, the singular denitrification unit has its first chamber as a septic tank chamber, and that's what's being used here. So it's a 3-bedroom house, and for that, we're very comfortable using the single air without a septic tank prior to it. And it is approved in that manner by the DEP approval for remedial use.
Okay, thank you. Questions, Michael,
No questions, thank you.
Carol,
No questions.
Denise,
No questions.
Ron,
No questions.
Alyssa,
No question.
Sandy. I have none. Is there anybody online that would like to comment on this project?
Move to close the hearing.
Second.
I have a motion to close the hearing in a second. All in favor, Michael,
Aye.
Carol,
Aye.
Denise,
Aye.
Ron,
Aye.
Alyssa,
Yes.
Sandy, yes. You're approved. Please see Mr. Bichette before you start any work. Okay, Rick?
Well,
Yes,
that was that, I thought we just
That was
closed
just to close the
the
hearing.
meeting. I make a motion to approve
Oh.
the negative determination 3.
Thank
Second.
you. I wonder if this is going to be like this all tonight.
I hope not, Sandy.
I hope not either. I have a motion and a second for -3. All in favor, Michael,
Aye.
Carol,
Aye.
Denise,
Yes.
Ron,
Yes.
Alyssa,
Yes.
Sandy, yes. No, Rick, you're approved.
thank you very much. You all have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Notice of,
Mercury's in retrograde.
Oh,
notice of public hearing pursuant to the provisions of the Massachusetts Wetland Protection Act, General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Wareham Wetland Protective Bylaw, Division 6. A public hearing will be held on Wednesday, February 2nd, 2022, at 6:30 p.m. on the request for determination of applicability for Patrick Highland, care of J.C. Engineering, Inc., 2854 Cranberry Highway, East Wareham, Mass. 02538, to construct a duplex located on Assessor's Map 132, Lot 1043, 53, and 1087, 13 Mayflower Ridge Drive, Wareham, Mass.
thank you. And who's here representing this project?
Hey, good evening, Brian Wallace with JC Engineering.
Okay, Ms. Bichette, your turn.
Okay. So this project site is at 13 Mayflower Ridge Drive, and this project involves the construction of a duplex in the buffer zone to bordering vegetated wetland. The project proposes a duplex with 2 4-bedroom dwelling units. And the work that's within the buffer zone is some grading activity up towards the street. The actual houses and the septic systems themselves are not within the buffer zone at all. So the only work within the 100-foot to the wetland is some grading work that you see closer towards the road. They are proposing to place hay bales and silt fence along the road to contain the site. Again, the septic systems are all outside of the buffer zone to the wetlands. And again, the wetlands are actually on the other side of the paved street. So with that, I would recommend the approval of the project with a negative determination number 3.
Brian, anything to add?
No, I think Dave stated it pretty good there. I'd just be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, questions on the board, Michael?
Just a few things here. First of all, not related to the project, just want to point out that I do have a very weak internet system, so I may get cut off. And I'll rejoin as quickly as possible. Now, getting back to this project, just a few questions here. So if I'm reading that correctly, the project is actually built on top of the hill, is that correct?
Yeah, it's sort of on that slope as you go from the road to the top of the hill there. So we're sort of cutting into that bank.
Okay. Okay. And the other question I have is now, during the construction of this project, where's the construction equipment going to be stored?
Yeah, I mean, the portions to the left and to the right of the house are relatively level. So I would imagine they'd be stored there in those areas, not between the proposed house and the road, but probably off to the side in that cleared area.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
Carol,
No questions.
Denise,
My only concern was with the shared driveway. I was hoping that it would be permeable, being that it's right across the street from the wetland. I was worried about runoff coming off.
good question. Brian, how are you going to handle the runoff from that driveway?
Yeah, I mean, we didn't, propose any catch basins or anything like that. That driveway is not a huge amount of pavement. So we didn't have really any mitigation efforts for that. We sort of treated this as a residential construction where we wouldn't be required to, meet stormwater standards or anything of that nature.
Would you be open to making it permeable?
I could run that by the applicant and get their thoughts. That's certainly more costly and more maintenance. So I can't guarantee that they'd be open to that, but I could reach out and find out.
Where's the nearest, sorry, Denise, anything else?
I just think that it's very close to the wetland across the street, and it needs to be addressed in some fashion.
And I'm going to follow up on that. It's Brian, where's the nearest stormwater drain? Is there anything on the road?
There are no catch basins on the roads, at least in the vicinity of this site. We didn't see any. So it's more or less, I suppose, a country style drainage where, it goes off to the side. I think there is a slight crown in the road. We unfortunately don't have that indicated on the plan, but there are no catch basins near the site, fortunately.
I have more questions, but I'll go to Ron. Anything you have?
I mean, I'm going to echo Carol on this. I think it is really close to the wetland, and it'd be addressed in some manner because it is, looks to be quite a large driveway. So I think we should probably definitely think about something to address that situation.
Lisa?
I am also on the idea that this is a pretty big driveway. I mean, it's nice for two people, but how many cars can you fit in it? A lot. And when you go down there today where the snow is melting, you can see that it doesn't just puddle right there. It goes into the wetland. The wetland is really wet right now. I think permeability might at least help out. And I don't know, maybe some sort of catch basin or something if that's needed. I'm not sure.
And I'm going to go along with the same feeling that I would like to see where you're going to do with a runoff from the roofs.
That would have just been, overland runoff, but we could certainly look at doing dry wells for that.
I would like dry wells. And I know that it's hard to maintain a pervious driveway, but is there a chance that you could put some type of slope in it so it drains into two retention basins on either side of the driveway to reduce the runoff into the road and into the wetlands? If a retention basins are used on both sides, there might be some way of treating or holding the water, letting it drain through the soil before it hits the wetlands. Is there a chance you could do something like that?
Yeah, we could look into it. A good portion of that driveway is actually within the right of way of Mayflower Ridge Drive. So we'll have to think about that carefully and see if perhaps we could provide a catch basin to at least capture a good portion of that driveway runoff without doing too much work within the right of way itself.
Okay.
So we're happy to look into it and see if we can refine that a little bit better.
Thank you, because the concern is the runoff is oil, antifreeze, soap when someone washes their car, and I just don't want that all going directly into the wetlands.
Right, understood.
The question is, if there was no indication.
Is there anybody here that has a comment on this particular project?
Sending troops to that area. Kim, you want to start us off?
Somebody needs to mute themselves or turn off their television. Thank you.
Thomas, whoever Thomas is.
Well,
Thomas,
thank you, Thomas. So I would like to have a continuance on this, giving Brian a chance to look at our solution to our concerns. Is there anybody who wants to speak to this project?
Move to continue the hearing till our next meeting.
second.
Which is
Would that
16.
work?
2/16.
Will that work for you, or would you rather have it go into March?
Brian,
That would work for us. I think that's plenty of time for us to review the plan.
Okay, thank you.
okay. So there was a motion and a second to continue this until February 16th. All in favor, Michael?
Aye.
Carol,
Yes.
Denise,
Yes,
Ron,
Yeah.
Lissa,
Yes.
Sandy, yes.
All right. Are you ready to go on, Sandy?
Yes, please, thank you.
It's a public hearing pursuant to the provisions of the Massachusetts Wetland Protection Act, General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Wareham Wetland Protective Bylaw, Division 6. A public hearing will be held on Wednesday, February 2nd, 2022 at 6:30 p.m. on the request for determination of applicability for Keith Duquette, care of JC Engineering, Inc., 2854 Cranberry Highway, East Wareham, Mass. 02538, to upgrade a septic system located on Assessor's Map 29, Lot 1014, 5 Harborview Lane, Wareham, Mass.
Thank you. Thank you. Who's here representing this project?
Good evening, Brad Bertol, JC Engineering.
And before we continue, Brad, your letterhead regarding this talks about a demo and reconstruction of a family dwelling above and beyond the septic system. Correct?
Yes, yes.
Okay, so we're talking about demo, replacement, and a septic system. All right, Mr. Pichette, your turn.
Yeah, so as we've heard, the site is at 5 Harborview Lane, and the project involves the demolition of an existing home, the construction of a new home, the installation of a new septic system, and site work and grading as shown on the site plan. The majority of the work is outside of the buffer zone to the wetland, which is freshwater marsh on the other side of Harborview Lane. But it is part of it is within the coastal flood zone, zone VE elevation 18, and also AE elevation 15. So the majority of the work, as I said, is outside the buffer zone to the wetland, but it is within the flood zone, and there is a fair amount of site work and grading that has to be done as shown on the plan. Erosion control should be installed along the front of the site to contain the site during construction. But based on the fact that the work is not even for the most part within the buffer zone, I would recommend approval of the project with a negative determination number 2 for this work.
I go into Ellis.
Somebody is being very inconsiderate. If you're not participating in the hearing, please mute yourself. We don't need to hear your conversations. Thank you. Is anything else, Mr. Bichette? Was that it?
That was it, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Brad, any comments on it?
Yeah, I have no problem submitting a revised plan showing erosion control across the limits of the proposed grading. And just, but leaving a gap opening so that machine work can get in and out of the site. But I'd be happy to answer any other
Yep.
questions you may have.
Okay, I will go around the horn. Michael,
Yeah, I may have missed this in the plan there. What's the type of surface that's going to be on the proposed driveway?
We are proposing a paved driveway.
Paved driveway? Okay, thank you.
okay, Carol,
No questions.
Denise,
I didn't have any questions on this other than Elisa, when we were discussing it, you were talking something about private electrical or something on this property. Is this private electrical?
Electric utilities?
I didn't quite understand. Maybe Elisa can explain it. Did she step away? She said something about them actually putting in their own electrical system along the street. I didn't understand how that tied into all of this.
it's not on the plan.
No? She said it was a private electrical system. That's what I guess I'll have to wait till if she comes back.
The property is going to utilize an existing utility pole that's already on the property, so power will be coming from that.
Through that pole, okay. If she returns, she can clarify what she was talking about today. Okay, no other questions.
She's still missing.
Yeah, I don't know what she disappeared there.
Okay, I guess, Brad, my same concerns. What about the runoff from the roof? I would like to see dry wells. And is there any attempt to try to reduce the runoff of the driveway across the street into the wetlands?
It's a gravel driveway, gravel roadway as it is today. I don't have any
Yes.
topo on the other side to show where that goes. It's a pretty decent setback off the wetlands. We already doing no work within 100 feet of any wetlands.
Okay. But they're
And-
gonna put in a paved driveway. And the
Yeah, and a-
house has to be up how many feet?
90.
80?
The first floor of the house is a couple feet above grade, or a few feet above grade.
Okay. You have to bring, how much soil you're gonna have to bring in to raise the house?
There's about, I did the math earlier today. There was about, let me just get the math here. Almost 400 yards total in the floodplain area. No, actually, most of it's in the floodplain, so
Okay,
that's to get the driveway up, get the grade up and the first floor up high enough to get it floodplain compliant.
all right. Did Alyssa come back?
I don't see her.
Okay. Is there anybody that would like to comment on this project? I personally have no problem
Yes, she has.
approving this project tonight, and as opposed to waiting for another 2 meetings for the erosion control barrier. Dave, what do you think?
Yeah, I think that's fine. We can just condition that as part of the approval.
Lisa is back.
I am back. I'm sorry. There was an emergency here.
No, I have a question. We were talking here something about when we went out today about a private electrical system or something out on this one.
It doesn't affect us. It only affects the people who do the building. So it really isn't our
Okay,
issue.
Okay, and nobody's here to speak to this project, so I'll take a motion to
close the hearing.
close the hearing.
Motion to close the hearing.
Second,
Thank you. All in favor? Michael?
Aye.
Carol?
Yes.
Denise?
Yes.
Ron?
yes.
Alyssa?
Thanks.
Sandy? Yes. The hearing is closed.
I think I make a motion to approve the project with the standard order of conditions.
Nope, it's an RDA.
Oh, it's an idea. Okay. So what did we say?
-2.
-2.
-2? Okay, but didn't you say we were gonna approve it with the -2, but didn't we? Hold on one second, baby. Didn't you say we wanted to add into the conditions about getting the revised plan
Yeah,
prior to?
no,
No,
it was going to be with a -2 with the request to have erosion control barriers installed
and dry wells,
in
And
dry
dry-
wells.
dry wells.
So then that's the motion.
Second,
All in favor, Michael,
Aye.
Carol,
Yes,
Denise,
yes.
Ron,
Yes.
Alyssa, Sandy. Yes. All set with that one.
Thank you.
Number 4.
Don't do anything until you get your paperwork from Dave, okay?
Understood.
Notice of public hearing pursuant to the provisions of the Massachusetts Wetland Protection Act, General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Wareham Wetland Protective Bylaw, Division 6. A public hearing will be held on Wednesday, February 2nd, 2022 at 6:30 p.m. on the request for determination of applicability for Eric Wade, care of JC Engineering, Inc., 2854 Cranberry Highway, East Wareham, Mass. 02538. To demolish a single-family dwelling and construct a new dwelling located on Assessor's Map 2, Lots 75A and 75B, 3 Admiral's Way, Wareham, Mass. The meeting, that's it.
Thank you. And who's here to speak to this project?
Good evening, Brad Bertola with JC Engineering.
Thank you. Ms. Bichette?
Yeah, so this site is at 3 Admiral's Way in Onset, and this project involves the demolition of an existing home and the reconstruction of a new home in the same general location as what currently exists, and this is within a coastal flood zone. The site is not within the buffer zone to any other wetlands. It's strictly the fact that it happens to be within the coastal flood zone, AE elevation 14. And there is some grading work shown on the site plan. And my only question about that was how the grading is going to, it appears anyway, to direct water towards the neighbor's lot. So I just wanted to find out if that was intended or if there's a way to more or less prevent water from being dumped or directed towards that neighboring lot. But as I said, other than that, it's not in the buffer zone to any other resource areas. This is strictly just a flood zone project. So I'll just wait to hear the response from Brad on the runoff issue.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dave. Yeah, the site is, or the house is built into the bank as it is today. The grade on Admiral's Way is considerably higher than the grade on the opposite side of the street closest to the neighbor. So currently a lot of that runoff heads in that direction today. We're trying to maintain a low spot on our property along the fence, along the property line. I could look at it a little further. Maybe we add some dry wells to the property, and that would kind of capture a decent amount of roof runoff that currently today goes to the same location on the property. So it would actually reduce the amount of runoff to that ends up in the low spot of the property.
Yeah,
Dave,
the way the grades are shown compared to how they exist, it does look like you're kind of filling up a little bit, which would create a more significant slope in some parts, that would go towards that property line.
Yeah, but if we add some dry wells for the roof runoff, we'll take out, that's approximately 25% of the lot that currently heads towards that direction, which will be eliminated and infiltrated. So it will reduce the actual amount of water that's headed that direction.
Okay, so you're gonna revise the plan then to show that?
I could, yeah, I have no problem with adding dry wells to the system if the commission agrees to that.
I would say on this one, I would prefer to see the revision versus just proving with a condition, because this one is a little trickier and there's not as much room to operate with or figure things out. So that would be my recommendation to the commission.
Okay, thank you. Questions, Michael,
I'll wait to see any revision at this time. Thank you.
Carol,
No questions at this time.
Denise?
Just the water runoff was what an issue with me. So as long as we're addressing that with the dry wells, I'm fine.
Ron,
No questions at this time.
Lissa?
I have sort of the same runoff issue to the poor neighbors, but this house, I think, Brad, is going to have 2 bedrooms, and right now, does it have 2 bedrooms or 1?
They're proposing a 2-bedroom house. Yep, it's a
Yeah.
2-bedroom house existing and 2-bedroom proposed.
But I think that dealing with the runoff and so that the neighbor doesn't suffer is very important.
Yeah, the actual footprint of the house is pretty much mirroring what's there today. I think
Okay.
it's about 100 square feet bigger footprint wise. So I'm not anticipating any additional runoff created from the construction of this new house. Besides the driveway that's more pitched towards the street. But again, if we add roof dry wells, we're eliminating a decent amount of runoff that currently exists today that kind of pitches towards I guess the low point of the property that's between both properties.
Yeah,
That's down by the fence. So
thank you, dear.
Always thinking.
Is there anybody here that'd like to comment on this project?
Motion to continue the hearing.
Second,
I have a motion to continue until February 16th,
second,
and I have a second.
Second,
All in favor of continuing, Michael?
Aye.
Carol? Denise?
yes,
Yes,
Ron?
Yes.
Lissa?
yes.
Sandy, we're continuing until February 16th for an updated plan with dry wells.
Okay.
Next, please.
We're going on a notice of public hearing pursuant to the provisions of the Massachusetts Wetland Protection Act, General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Wareham Wetland Protective Bylaw, Division 6. A public hearing will be held on Wednesday, February 2nd, 2022, at 6:30 p.m. on the amended order of conditions for Peak Contractors LLC, care of JC Engineering, Inc., 2854 Cranberry Highway, East Wareham, Mass. 02538, to request a plan change to change the location of the approved dwelling located on Assessor's Map 54, Lot 4, 150 Cremisa Road, Wareham, Mass.
Thank you. Is there anybody here representing this project?
again, good evening. This is Brad from JC Engineering.
Thank you. Mr. Bichette?
Yeah, so this project site is at 150 Cremisa Road, and this application is a request to make a plan change to allow the relocation of the proposed house on the lot within a coastal flood zone within the buffer zone to bordering vegetated wetland and also adjacent to riverfront area. An existing dwelling was already approved to be constructed on this site. So the commission has already granted an order of conditions for a house on this site, which would be in flood zone AE elevation 16 and approximately 80 feet from the edge of the wetland. And that's where this box is shown right here on the site plan. They are requesting a plan change to now propose to build a house within a velocity flood zone much closer to the wetland and towards the riverfront. So the new proposed house location would be approximately 50 feet from the edge of the wetland. The proposed limit of work would be 30 feet from the edge of the wetland. There would also be the need to bring in approximately 170 yards of fill to accommodate the grading that's shown on this proposed plan change. The site is serviced by town sewer and water. So again, the new location does place the house closer to the wetland and also in a more high hazard flood zone. And also placing more fill within the velocity flood zone as well. So in my opinion on this case where it's already been demonstrated that the house can be built in the AE zone, I would recommend that the commission not approve the proposed change and just leave things the way they are instead of placing the structure within the higher velocity flood zone.
Thank you. Brad?
Thank you. Yeah, this project, the applicant would like to relocate the house further back off of the existing driveway that bisects the lot. The work limit line around the house is approximately the same location that was originally approved. There is a gray dash line that wraps around the house. Moving a house in the back will eliminate the need to relocate some utilities that were overhead in front of the existing house. That's shown in the gray box, and allows us to relocate the limit of work away from the wetlands and the coastal bank that's shown in purple. So the footprint within the work limit of the footprint where a disturbance was to take place is approximately about 1,300 square feet, smaller than what was originally approved. We are, proposing the house in a velocity zone, which is allowed under the Act and the local bylaw. We're not proposing any work within the 200-foot riverfront area. We're not encroaching within any 30-foot no touch that was, in your bylaw. So I think overall benefit to this site, because we're disturbing less material or less property. The amount of fill matches what was originally approved. It's within 5 cubic yards calculated from what was originally proposed. The original site plan had full foundation walls for a portion of the site, and grading that I believe went up to approximately elevation 16 in front of the dwelling to fill all in front of that existing dwelling. Today, this revision proposes approximately 2 feet just to support the slab underneath the structure. Again, the structure is going to be on piers, most likely poured concrete columns. So I think that, if we came in front of the board with this plan originally, I don't see why it would get denied, since it meets all the bylaws and the Wetlands Protection Act. If you have any questions on the layout, I'd be happy to answer anything you may have.
Okay. Michael?
All right. So it is going to be going up higher anyway, whether it's on piers, stilts or whatever. So I did read that correctly. So what's going to be the influence on homes in the area as far as heights, site rather, goes?
Site elevation wise, it's the first floor elevation is only changing about 6 inches. So the height of the structure is the same. We put it at the minimum allowed under pretty much both scenarios. So there was no height change to that. Obviously, we're going to build in accordance to the zoning bylaws, max height of 35 feet. So it's basically a two-story dwelling, or it's a Cape style dwelling on top of a first floor. So it'll look like a two-story colonial, basically, 2 stories in the front and a dormer in the back on the water side. It'll look like 3 stories, typical finished attic, colonial type structure, garage underneath, because it'll be up on stilts or piers.
All right, thank you.
Carol,
No questions.
Denise,
I guess would like to understand why they're moving the structure. Has to deal with the cost involved with the utilities? Is that what I'm understanding?
No, it's just more of the impact it might have on the neighboring property owner, and the impact the neighboring property owner may have on this property. They have, as you can see on, I guess, a black dashed line, that they have a driveway easement that crosses the property. And the house, we initially were trying to avoid the building in the 8 velocity zone, although we were proposing a yard and a limit of work pretty much where it was today. Where it was then, I'm sorry. But I believe that the property owner looked at the site and just feels that he preferred the building further back off the driveway, which will place the system in the velocity zone. And he's aware of the type of foundation that's required for that, which is it's the same as the house that's right beside.
Dave,
elevated house.
can you show me where this easement is? I can't, this thing is so tiny that I can't quite see where this easement is.
Well, the easement basically is this driveway as you're coming into the site.
Okay.
Where?
Where he's got the arrow moving along the bottom of it.
Okay.
There.
So this is the driveway, and it comes across the lot we're currently discussing, and then it goes so that this person has access to his lot over here.
Oh, okay. Now, and what were your objections to this, Dave? Can you just go over those again?
Mainly just not to have more construction in the more significant velocity zone if possible, because that's what we should be trying to work towards when it's feasible. And as I said, it's been demonstrated that it is feasible on this particular site. Also, this is a request for an amendment, and so the commission can grant an amendment, but you're not obligated to. And so if you don't, then they would have to file a new notice of intent if they felt like they wanted to pursue this further. So just so the commission understands the options.
And would, in your view, Brad, would the owner be doing that? If we turn this down, would he come back with a notice of intent to put this in this other spot and abandon the other project?
I don't see why we would need to file a new notice. It could be permitted under this current order of conditions. It is an open order of conditions. You can specify conditions, which is no different than filing a new notice. If you want a new notice and you deny it, I'd have to talk to my client and see if he wants to go through expense of refiling, new filing fees, new recording fees for the new filing, and then I have to request a COC on the old filing to close out that order of conditions.
Yeah, I understand it's a big deal.
Yeah, you have the discretion to make a conditions on this amendment as you would a new notice.
All right, thank you.
Ron, any questions?
I mean, I see both. I can see on both sides of the fence, but I have the same concerns that Dave has. about the project being relocated, because obviously our goal is to minimize work in higher velocity zones. And, it's, as the point Dave made, it's been demonstrated that this project could be done in another location on the site that would be make more sense for trying to keep out of those high velocity zones.
Alyssa?
So Dave, if I can ask you, this new proposed dwelling is it's in a velocity zone, and it's in a more active velocity zone than the other design? I mean,
Well, the original location is not in the velocity zone. It's in a flood zone, but it's not within the velocity flood zone. So that type of a flood zone would have less wave action and impacts versus the velocity zone area.
I don't have much as far as questions go or anything like that. I think it's really just what's the goal of our bylaws and what do we need to do?
Okay, Brad, how much more paved driveway do we have to have in order to push the house that much further from the existing approved one? That's a lot more paved wide driveway, isn't it?
It doesn't necessarily have to be paved. The client's willing to do some type of gravel or crushed stone. I spoke to the applicant earlier today. He would hope for like some type of paved apron right in front of the garage, just so that it's a little easier in and out and maintenance wise in the future. But he's very open to having any type of gravel or crushed stone, I guess.
When you say garage, it's a parking area under the house between the pylons.
That's what I meant. Yes, a lower level underneath. Yes.
Okay, now around these pylons, what type of material will be placed on the walls or anything? Breakaways, or just nothing? I mean, are they going to be putting something up to try to make it look like an enclosed area for water to flow through without a problem? Or you know what I'm trying to get to?
I understand what
Breakaway
I understand.
walls.
I think the applicant wants to do breakaway panels, so it looks like a finished house, but it has breakaway panels. He'll still need flood vents no matter what. That's required under the building code. Before the old design, it's in the AE16, would be solid panels. There would be still flood vents on that, but no breakaway panels. So in the long run, if these panels break away, you have a lot more free movement of water underneath the structure than you would where it would be located today, or as originally approved.
And do the breakaway panels, do they have to be secured to the house?
They do make a system where it's they're tethered and they kind of stay in place. I've seen that before on other plans. Yes, on other architectural plans for other projects.
Now, the house is going to be, 50 feet from the edge of the wetlands, right?
Yes,
and
50 feet. Yep.
And we have 30-foot no activity zone. So how are we going to control the 20 feet between their house and our 30-foot no work zone, no activity zone, to make sure they don't continue to encroach into the 30 feet in wetlands? Did that make sense?
Yes.
20 feet is not much between the house and no activity zone. How do we save that land from being encroached upon?
Very willing to put any type of barrier. Split rail fence is a good kind of natural barrier that demarks the limit of work and prevents unauthorized, I guess, clearing beyond the work limit. That
Yeah.
would be
I'm sure they're going to want a way to walk through that to get to the riverfront.
as originally approved, we did have a 30-inch path. It's kind of shown on the right side of the screen,
Mhm.
brown dashed line that leads from the work limit to most advantageous location for access out towards the water.
So we could very well say also find some way to identify the limit of the no activity zone, giving them a path, saying nothing is to be stored, no boats, no kayaks, no nothing is to be stored in that wetland. I mean, and the driveway could be very well be.
With all the questions, it's sort of hard to allow that. I think that's your frustration, Sandy.
Well, yeah, they're so much closer to the wetland. They had a lot of area they could have done things with, but now they're going to give themselves 20 feet
Now, 20
from the
feet
edge,
is-
from the edge of the deck to the no activity zone. That's not a lot of land.
No,
And it's so
That's-
easy for someone to put a kayak beyond the split rail fence to be close to the river.
well, split
That's
rail
how-
fence also is not permanent.
No, it will rot away,
Right.
or maybe
I have a-
stones, boulders.
I have another question though, too. If he's in the AE zone, there's no breakaway walls down below. So is this house now going to be higher when it moves into the VE zone? Because you have to put that space underneath it?
No, they're just gonna be closer to the river.
Yeah, but it's got to go up higher too, I think, doesn't it?
Yes, it would have to go up higher.
It's
Oh.
not higher than was originally approved. I mean, actually 6 inches higher, sorry. The first floor was 21.0 and was a similar design where it had a I guess a walkout basement on two sides and filling in front of the house.
Okay, and when it goes into a VE, it becomes a VE what?
This case here, it's VE 18.
VE 18 versus AE 16.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
I'd like to say that the limit of work pretty much follows pretty close to where it was today. So if there was a limit of work originally, I mean, we could have at the time shown a split rail fence too, or had that same concern, but there's really no difference whether we have a limit of work in the same spot with the house there or a house further back. It's still a limit of work.
Now, if we were to ask for boulders, can you get a big enough boulder that will not be moved in a hurricane or flood?
Can't promise it, Sandy.
And you can't.
No, I mean,
pump
there
it.
has to be a substantial size boulder that can stand up against velocity zone
Where would you be placing that?
along the 30-foot no activity zone, that hole from lot line to lot line.
I would think, yes, you can get a boulder. I can't promise it won't move in a
I know,
Of
as opposed
flood
to
zone,
a
but
piece, as
again,
opposed
it's
to a
a-
pea stone, yeah.
there's
Yeah.
close to, I'll say, there's a 200-foot riverfront, and we got a decent amount of vegetation between the house and open water area that you would hope would knock down some of those wave heights. But again, it's anticipated to be that they call 3 feet or greater
Yeah,
wave heights and velocity. AE zone is under 3 feet, so you still could get decent wave heights in the AE zone. But yeah, I would think a boulder that's big enough that can't be moved by hand, or that would stay there for quite a while.
Now, how much more vegetation has to be removed on this lot in order to put the house where it's being proposed?
As I stated, we're less footprint of disturbance.
Okay,
It's approximately 1,300 square feet. And that's not including there's a little island that's at the bottom of the screen where the driveway kind of splits. The proposed driveway would stay left in the opening and the neighbor's driveway stays right of it. I'm anticipating keeping that island there. And then the hay bale line that's kind of bisecting the original footprint, that was along the property line, and we were disturbing right up to the side property line. So all that land area that's to the north of the driveway and north of the former footprint is area that was disturbed or proved to be disturbed, which is now not needed to be disturbed because I don't have to relocate the utilities all the way back to that. I guess it would be one pole in from the street. I'm planning to keep the overhead utilities as is and tie off the existing utility pole that's located directly in front of the old footprint of the house.
I think you're gonna end up, Sandy, with more tree clearing closer towards the river because the previous plan didn't propose to clear cut that whole area right down to the river. Whereas with the house being placed there, obviously that has to happen.
Take the trees out.
Never mind.
What about putting those wires underground? I know it's more expensive, but they're making their house forever. They're, so.
No, what was proposed for utilities would be underground from the existing utility pole.
The existing utility pole off his lot on the roadway? Or from?
It's not far from that sewer manhole that's shown at the bottom of the screen.
Okay.
It's a little circle with the S just
Right.
above. That's a little further north, Dave. But there is a utility pole about 10 feet north of that utility. That pole was originally proposed right in front of the house and just wouldn't make sense to leave it there. The proposed design that's before you tonight is to leave that as is and just tie the proposed house into that utility pole by digging a trench and adding an underground utility. So that's the
Okay.
what we're proposing for utilities. Obviously, we have a proposed water line and proposed sewer line as well that would be trenched.
And what is in between where they were gonna put the house and where they want to put the house now? What is there?
will it be a yard?
I'd probably be, yes, grass yard. We're basically taking the grass yard from the backyard to the front yard. So it'd be the front of the proposed house as opposed to the rear of the former approved location.
Any other
It just seems like they went so far back on the property that it's like they couldn't meet further away from that area. Why they couldn't pull it forward more? I don't understand why they're going so far back. And getting-
Probably for privacy.
Oh, because they're getting so close to that area that we don't want them in. And then that's actually the no activity zone is their backyard.
That is right. They've got 20 feet.
Yeah.
That's all they can have for a backyard.
No, that's.
Yeah, but now they're gonna have a front yard. So that's originally the front yard was a driveway. So it's just a trade-off with, front yard, backyard. And we feel the 20 feet is adequate. We're not pushing the limit. We felt there's enough room between the house and the vegetation for working and maintaining that space.
Is this
obviously-
all staked out?
It is, yes.
But it's all under snow.
Yeah, it depends on how much snow we got, but I'm pretty sure the stakes are sticking above the snow.
Because if it's okay, I would like to get to go. I didn't get to this site today, unfortunately, and I would like to get to go to it and just walk it and just see exactly, be able to see in my mind how close they are to that line.
Well, the 30-foot no work zone will not be identified with a stake, only the house lot.
Yeah,
The
but I can
house
walk-
would be.
I can walk 20, count 20 feet out.
Now,
just-
we staked out the limit of work in the house. So the limit of work is staked. and
Is,
the house-
okay,
All the way around the limit of work is staked and the four corners of the house. So it's walkable, depending how deep the snow is.
Yeah, that was, I didn't get out there today because of the snow. I don't know. Does anybody
mean-
else have questions or concerns? I don't know.
What do you think?
anybody? I'm going to ask for comments. Michael,
As far as comments go, I have no more, to be honest with you.
Okay.
I
just
pretty
that
much echo
we've
to
done a
com-
lot. We've done a lot of discussions. So I'm just going to ask again if there's any issues or concerns or comments. Carol,
No questions.
Denise,
No more than what I've already stated.
yeah, Ron, anything new?
No, I mean, as you guys continue to discuss, I mean, I can agree with more points. The concern of, the 20-foot, only 20 feet in the backyard and encroaching onto the 30-foot no activity. I mean, there just seems to be a lot more deterring factors that, as we continue to discuss, to make it not want to be in that location.
I mean, yeah.
Alyssa,
No, nothing new.
Brad, is there any way they could take this house and move it a little further away from the 30-foot no activity zone? Another 10 or 20 feet closer to the prior approved site?
I'm sure that's an option. I'd have to get back to my client, and
Yeah,
if
I'm
doing
really
so, I'd have to request a continuance and give you guys a chance to walk the site. And I can't make that decision tonight. I'd have to talk to the client.
My concern is that they're so close to that riverfront. It's going to be a hard nut to encroach in it.
Well, if we propose a barrier along that, then that's a pretty good, something pretty easy to see in the field for property owners to know, yeah, this is a limit
Yep.
of work.
And the first kayak that's put on the river's edge. Because they don't want to haul it back and forth in that 30-foot wide, 30-inch wide path. All right, what would the board, it looks like we're going to ask for a continuance so we can
You just
continue
have,
to.
you just have some public that would like to comment.
In a minute. We want to continue to, so that Denise and probably Alyssa can walk the site. Now I'm going to ask, is there anybody would like to comment on this project? Please identify yourself and I will recognize you.
Amy, you can go ahead.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes,
I would just say, I think there's a more elegant
excuse
solution.
me, can you identify yourself?
Hi, I'm Amy Roberts. I just think that there's a more elegant solution to what's being proposed here. You could move the house back, and I think setting a precedent and saying that a wooden split rail fence is a sufficient boundary is not the way that I would like to go. You can be more creative in where you're going to put the house on this property.
Thank you for your comment. Anybody else?
Just a note, Sandy, and that is, I mentioned that the boulders there, rocks there to delineate the line. 30 inches is only this much, and you put the rocks down or the boulders down, That takes up half of your 30 inches.
No, but the boulders will not be touching each other. They'll just be, there'll be space between the
Okay.
boulders to
Okay.
allow passage of the little deer and other critters and stuff like that. It will not be a solid
Okay.
line of boulders. They would say, okay,
Point well taken.
yeah, because I don't expect it to be nose to tail. There will be walking space. Okay. Anybody else wanted to comment on this project before we continue?
Motion to continue the hearing.
Second.
Second.
To the 16th.
Is 16th good, or do we need more time?
16th is adequate.
Okay,
A
so I
motion
have a
continue.
motion continue until the 16th. I heard a second. All in favor, Michael?
Aye.
Carol,
Yes.
Denise,
Yes.
Ron,
Yes.
Melissa,
Yes.
Sandy, yes, we're continued until the 16th.
Okay.
Thank
Next
you for your
one,
time.
please. Thank you.
Yep, number 6. All right, notice of public hearing pursuant to the provisions of the Massachusetts Wetland Protective Act, General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Wareham Wetland Protective Bylaw, Division 6. A public hearing will be held on Wednesday, February 2nd, 2022, at 6:30 p.m. on the notice of intent for Paul and Andrea Romanus, care of JF Engineering, Inc., 266 Main Street, Wareham, Mass. 02571, to remove and replace a section of seawall located on Assessor's Map 46A-1, Lot C and 1000, 82 Pinehurst Drive, Wareham, Mass.
Thank you. Is anybody here representing this project?
Yes, Madam Chair, Bob Rogers with GAF Engineering.
Okay, Bob, thank you. I just to clarify that the letter from GAF talked about a 4-foot wide steps at the end of the wall will also be removed and replaced. I went around this place, could never find steps. I just wanted to let you know. I tried, I couldn't find them.
Okay.
There are none there.
Okay. I saw them in the pictures from whatever the date of the survey. So, but
Okay. All
it's
right,
fine.
so Mr. Bichette,
Yeah, that was actually going to be one of my questions, was kind of the same thing. Do these steps currently exist and you're replacing exactly what is currently there? Or are you proposing to add a new stretch of wall on that far side of what are shown as the steps?
Yeah, my understanding is that their steps were there and that they were going to be reconstructed. So if I'm mistaken, I would bring that back to you at the next hearing.
can I show you where the steps are not?
You may, I
There-
suppose.
Is there a flagpole there, Sandy?
There's a flagpole there and no steps.
Okay, I'll make sure I straighten it out. And it's, if there's any confusion, it's on my end, Madam Chair.
Okay. Okay,
Okay,
Dave, your
to
turn.
go, yeah, to go over at the project site is at 82 Pinehurst Drive. And the project involves replacing a section of seawall at this location. Approximately 30 feet of existing seawall is to be removed and replaced. This would be a poured concrete wall. So there would be the requirement to excavate along the base to install the footing. So this would have to be something that was really focused around the low tides to accomplish. Again, we already talked about the issue of the stairs and whatnot. We did get comments from the Mass Division of Marine Fisheries on this site, and they just sort of, again, commented about making sure that materials and equipment stayed off the marsh and that there was no encroachment into the beach or marsh area. We also did not get a DEP number for this project, so I was going to recommend a continuance of the hearing anyway, but that's essentially what's being proposed at the site.
Thank you. Bob, any comments?
So, yeah, so just to say, assuming that you're correct, that there were no pre-existing stairs, then the ones that are proposed would basically be going landward from the existing seawall. And, you know, it's hard for me to understand why there wouldn't have been any there, but it stands to reason that you know, a set of stairs is a reasonable request to get from the lawn down onto the beach. When we certainly understand we will be continuing for lack of a DEP file number.
Okay. Questions, Michael?
To be honest, I really had a chance to visit the site because of the snow recently, and so it's good that we'll get a chance to continue. So I look forward to the next hearing. Thank you.
Carol?
No questions.
Denise?
Was a big snow between Elisa Wall and this house and getting in the gate. We didn't get to see it, but we also wanted to note that on the Division of Marine and Fisheries letter that we got, it stated 81 Pinehurst Drive. Is there a reason that it's not 82?
I think they just made a mistake.
They're at the right house, correct?
Well, they have the right applicant, and it was pointed out to me by the applicant. You know, these letters come in at the last minute. It's a small thing, so but certainly they meant to reference 82 Pinehurst.
Just so they're at the right house. As long as we're going to continue, that'll be great, because then I can hopefully climb the snowbank and get out there.
Yeah.
Hopefully there won't be any snow.
That would be nice.
Ron, any questions?
No questions at this time.
Lisa?
None.
Yeah, this is, I don't know how we're going to see the wall unless we go down a neighbor's stairs.
Very close.
The only way to see it, to me, is probably go over to one of the roads across the bay and use a telephoto lens to look at it.
Madam Chair, I could email to the office the pictures that we have from the survey, and at least that would show what I saw.
Great. That would be great if you could do that, because visiting the site, I could lean over as far as I could over the railing and still couldn't see the wall.
Sure, I know we have some from the beach side, so I'll send those to the office tomorrow.
Thank you. Is there anybody in the audience online that would like to comment on this project?
We do have a hand up. So again, Amy, if you'd like to comment.
Thank you. This is Amy Roberts again. I'm just a member of the community, but I really don't understand how it is fair to this commission to show up and not have evidence of stairs and ask them to have an opinion. And so I just want to be on the record for saying, I don't think that the way this was presented to the committee was fair.
Thank you for your comment. Anybody else? We're going to continue for DEP filing and pictures of the wall. And for those who can climb the snowbank, go look at the property.
Wall and the stairs. And the stairs, Sandy.
Yes. Well, they don't exist.
Well, the
Here
magic.
it is, right next to the flagpole.
I get
The
it.
flagpole is on the plan.
Looks like there's a single step down.
So where are we continuing it to?
All right, so we're going to continue. I'd take a motion, please, to continue until 2/16.
Motion to continue to February 16th.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor, Michael?
Aye.
Carol?
Yes.
Denise?
Yes.
Ron?
Yes.
Alyssa?
Yes.
Sandy? Yes, we're continuing until February 16th. The next hearing is
Thank
the, please read it into the record, and they've asked for a continue.
Notice of public hearing. We need to read this in if they're going to continue.
Yes, we do.
All right. Notice of public hearing pursuant to the provisions of the Massachusetts Wetland Protection Act, General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Wareham Wetland Protected Bylaw, Division 6. A public hearing will be held on Wednesday, February 2nd, 2022 at 6:30 PM on the notice of intent for Continental Capital Partners, LLC, care of Schneider, Davignon, and Leone, Inc., P.O. Box 480, Mattapoisett, Mass. To remove an existing pier and reconstruct a new pier located on Assessor's Map 3, lots LC10A, LC10C, and LC11A, 5 Butler's Code Road, Wareham, Mass.
Thank you. They have requested a continuance. I'm not going to ask for comments because we don't do that on a continued hearing.
We have a
Dave, did you
date.
want to add anything? Dave, did you want to add anything?
Nope, not at this point.
Thank you. They've asked for until 2/16, I think, February 16th. Was that their letter?
Yes.
Yes.
A motion to continue to February 16th.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor, Michael,
Yes.
Carol,
Yes.
Denise,
Yes.
Ron,
Yes.
Lissa,
Yes.
Sandy. Yes, we're continued until 2/16. Now we go with the continued public hearing. We have the town of Wareham at Heinz
We
Field.
still have
There's
one
still
more
one more.
hearing, Sandy.
One more.
Yeah.
Oh,
wait,
sorry.
Yep, didn't come out on mine either. Wait a
Oh,
minute.
yeah, the car wash.
Yep. Hold on, I do have it.
And there was a late email from from Julian, and I honestly didn't have a chance to print it.
Hold on.
So, but we can open the hearing, please.
All right, wait a minute. We have,
No, I had mine.
okay. I actually didn't get a copy of it, so I'll read what I have, Sandy, and we'll take it from there. Notice of public hearing pursuant to the provisions of the Massachusetts Wetland Protection Act, General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Wareham Wetland Protected Bylaw, Division 6. A public hearing will be held on, I believe it's a notice of intent.
Yes, it is.
Yes.
First Hartford Realty Corp., care of VHB, 3013 Cranberry Highway, SE 7-6. I have nothing else on that. It didn't print
Yes.
out. Did you have to add more?
To construct a commercial car wash facility located on Assessor's Map 12, lots LC1 and B 3013 Cranberry Highway.
Thank you.
Mr. Bichette? Oh, is there anybody here representing this project?
I am. This is Kirk Quitzel with VHB.
Okay,
And with me is one of my colleagues, Claire Gubler. She's a wetland scientist. I'm the project manager.
okay, thank you. Mr. Bichette?
Yeah, so this project site is at 3013 Cranberry Highway, and the project involves the construction of a commercial car wash facility, which is partially in the buffer zone to bordering vegetated wetland and also within a coastal flood zone. There's a small corner of the property that is within the buffer zone to wetlands that exist along Dick's Pond, which is on the other side of Cranberry Highway from the proposed site. And the entire site is also within coastal flood zone AE elevation 14. The stormwater system for the proposed car wash facility is all handled on site. So there is no runoff that is proposed to be tied into the state stormwater drain system. Also, they have a certain system that is intended to capture water from the actual wash facility, which is separate from the stormwater system. And some of this water would also flow into the town sewer system. The town's consulting engineer has reviewed the stormwater system for the site and has spoken to me about it and stated that he is comfortable with the design. And he did not have any further questions about it. We did receive a DEP file number for this project as well. So at this time, based on those comments from the town engineer, I would recommend that the commission could issue the order of conditions for this project with the standard conditions and also with the added conditions that the stormwater structures be maintained in accordance with the operation and maintenance plan submitted with the project for this site.
I'm writing as fast as I could. Okay. Curtis, anything to add?
Actually, no, that was a lot more concise than I was going to be. But
So
we're
it's-
available if there's any questions at all. We're happy to discuss.
Okay. Dave, one more time, can you go through how they're going to handle the water? Slower so I can hear it. You said no impact to the stormwater.
Right, right. The stormwater systems that they're proposing are going to handle the runoff on the property. So in other words, they're not proposing to tie their stormwater into the state highway system. And then in terms of the car wash, and I'm sure the engineer can speak to this more completely, they do have a system that's intended to capture the water from the actual wash operation and recycle that water. But if there's overflow, then that would go into the town sewer system. So that would not be tied into the stormwater system for the project.
I think that's what bothered me.
Mm-hmm.
Does anybody tell Guy Campina about this overflow?
Yeah.
From my discussion with Charlie Rowley, he indicated that the applicant has gotten approval, but again, I'd rather have the applicant speak to that response.
Okay, I'll wait for my turn to ask the questions. Okay, so Curtis, nothing else to add to that, and I'll ask the committee for their questions. Michael,
Not at this time, thank you.
Carol,
No questions.
Denise,
I didn't get Curtis's last name.
It's Quitzau, spelled Quitzau.
C-A-U. Thank you. No, my concerns all were around the water and the overflow and how that was all being handled. And you seem to be touching on all those areas. Thank you.
thank you. Ron,
I mean, my concern is obviously we know that is an area down there that can take on a lot of water. I know it's gotten better with some of the work that they've done down there, but I think that's a big issue. But off topic, I think it's a pretty cool idea. But like I said, the biggest thing is the water and how it's going to be handled when it builds up.
Lissa,
Well, just repeating everything, as far as the water goes, we can't have any more developments because of our sewer system is at max capacity. And because just one person says it's okay, looks good, you know, I think we really have to make sure it looks good. And then I had another question, which is not really, I was wondering what the design of this car wash was, whether it will blend in at all, or is your idea to go flashy and draw people in because it's a flashy car wash?
Well,
Not
by
quite a
far.
wetlands issue.
I know, David, I did say that. I don't mean to be rude or anything like that. I just thought I would ask the question.
It's going to be a fairly contemporary style new building. Nothing flashing like flashing lights or any such thing. But it does have a, they're trying to establish a brand, and so it will have a unique look. It's a blue color, and it's got a lot of like a hazed glass for there's a lot of light within the tunnel as the cars pass through.
Thank you. And thank you
All
for
right.
answering.
Now, I'm going to make a observation. You have honey locust trees on this site. Dave, can you bring up the page that has the landscaping? If anybody knows downtown Wareham and the Pizzoli Square, those are locust trees there. And there's nothing worse than a locust tree losing its leaves, all those little tiny little leaves clogging up everything. I strongly recommend, thank you, that's the one, that you take a look at the two trees on your entrance. You don't want honey locust there. They will clog you up. As opposed to a big leaf like a, I don't know, a pear tree.
Red
but
maple.
it's something, but
Red maple
please.
is pretty.
Yeah,
There are
just
leaves.
something. It is a concern about clogging up your water systems and I'm sorry, that was my garden club hat on. Having to rake up the locust leaves at Pizzoli constantly, that would be a concern.
I will surely pass that comment along to the landscape architect. The palette of plants selected for the project were part of our discussions and deliberations with the ZBA. And so this is the first time we've heard this. I should point out that our stormwater system is all surficial. We don't have any catch basins because we don't have any ability to manage the stormwater if we put it underground, just because of the height of groundwater on the site.
Yep.
So if you're used to seeing these things clogging up catch basins, we don't really have that situation. We've got overland flow to these infiltration, these shallow infiltration swales.
Okay, just a comment. And I am concerned about any idea how much overflow you're going to be putting into the sewer system. And for clarification, I am a sewer commissioner.
Ah, okay. So we met with the sewer we applied
Guy
to the
Camp-
sewer commission.
Yep.
Yeah, Guy Campina.
Yes,
I have a letter dated July 6, 2021. It says at the Board of Sewer Commissioners meeting on June 24, 2021, the board voted unanimously to approve your project for sewer connection. So we have, we submitted
Okay.
to them. That's
that's
what we
fine.
have.
That's fine. I had a different hat on, but that was it. Is there anybody on the call that would like to comment on this project? Please identify yourselves.
Yes, Madam Chair. Hi, Attorney Jillian Morton. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Hi,
Julian,
thank
I didn't have a chance to read your email.
That's okay. I submitted it today, and I would hope that gets circulated. It was a letter regarding our opposition to the NOI and some of the concerns we have. So we wanted to make sure that the board had all the information. We also submitted, and I just wanted to say that we also have our engineer, a peer reviewer on here. So he had his concerns regarding the stormwater on the site. I think it's really important that this gets vetted out in the commercial district right there with Dick's Pond across the way. It did go through the site plan review, but that was a separate. I hear like an echo. I don't know who that is, but
There is somebody.
it's
I
not
don't
me.
know.
Okay.
I don't-
I'm not sure where that's coming from, but there was a zoning board of appeals case, and that is being appealed in Superior Court right now. So I wanted to give the commission, the board members, that information. So to kind of issue this order of conditions without also looking at the stormwater under your separate board here. We want you to be able to see our peer review of their stormwater management system and the concerns we had. I think they should be treated separately. I think that's important. I understand the conservation agent spoke to the town engineer, but it should be a separate reviewing body, in my opinion.
And I think that was you echoing.
Sandy, I have a question for you.
Yes.
All right, my question is, does this gentleman have another, I know you're building a brand, so they must have other car washes which have the same overflow type of thing. You know, this couldn't be the first one that you're overflowing into the sewer system. So do you have others in the area?
This seems to be different than what Attorney Morton was just talking about. I believe she was talking about stormwater and you're asking questions about sewer.
I am.
And honestly, sewer, to be my fault, sewer is beyond our scope of conservation. Stormwater, we are concerned.
So if you have another facility that does this, is it worked out well?
Well, so it's not that it's necessarily overflows. It's a recycling system for the wash water. It goes into, it gets collected within the building. It gets filtered. 50% of it goes towards the sewer and another 50% goes back into the car wash. So it's a 50% recycling system as I understand it. I don't believe any other of this prototype building has been constructed and operative yet, but the system is sure in use throughout the industry.
Okay.
So this is not some new invention for, recycling the
I
water.
didn't think it was a new invention.
Yep.
Just interesting that 50% of the water goes into the sewer and 50% gets recycled.
Correct.
Okay. Julian's email came to Dave and myself, and we will pass it around to the rest of the commission and to have a chance to read it and ask questions. And I would like to continue this hearing so I can have a chance to review what Attorney Morton has provided us. Is Julian, anything else you wanted to say?
I would just say that we do have the engineer on the call, but I want everyone to have the opportunity so we can have him back at the next continued hearing if there are specific responses. Also, I guess if the applicant wants to respond directly to the engineer, I'm happy to answer any questions. But I would just ask that this being a separate hearing, I think it's important that it's reviewed again under conservation eyes. So looking at, especially with Dick's Ponds across the way, we've already talked about this site being a problem area. And I'd like through the chair to kind of answer the question. This is the applicant's first system like this. There aren't other ones that he's done. So to use this site being kind of a guinea pig in a way, it's tough because it is such a problem site here in Wareham. So I just wanted to respond that way. Thank you.
You're commingling two different things.
Up. My
Yep.
turn. Thank
Okay.
you. Dave Pichette, I know you've made some comments on the retention basins that have been built along 6 and 28 in Dick's Pond. Are they doing their job that you can? Do you think so?
Are you speaking about the ones associated with the reconstruction by Mass
Yeah.
Highway?
Across the street between this site and Dick's Pond, I've seen a bunch of water retention basins. Are they doing their job?
Well, I would say at this point, they're really not completed. They're not fully constructed. So the shapes of them exist, but I wouldn't say that you could tell whether they're going to be working or not at this stage since they're not completed yet.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else want to comment on this project? Because I'm going to request a continuance to understand the documents we received this afternoon.
I'd like to know or understand who Julian is representing.
Yes, through the chair. I'm sorry.
Yes.
So I represent there's one more car wash on Cranberry Highway, soft touch car wash. That's the opposition to the project, understandably. So that's who I represent. It's in the letter as well, so you can take a look at that.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Yes, Curtis.
Ms. Chairman, we'd like to get a copy of whatever was submitted.
Yes, certainly.
Okay. Anybody else to comment on this before we continue? Hearing none?
Move to continue the,
What date?
so,
I think 2 weeks will give us time to read the document and understand it.
to the
So-
16th of February.
Yep,
16th.
that's the motion to
To
continue
continue the
until,
hearing
Continue to,
Yeah.
to 16th of February.
second,
and I have a motion and a second. All in favor, Michael?
Aye.
Carol?
Yes.
Denise?
yes.
Ron?
Yes.
Lissa?
Yes.
Sandy? We're continued until February 16th. And I will be distributing that email to the commissions tomorrow morning. And Dave, will you take the lead on giving it to Curtis and Company?
Yes.
Thank
Thank you.
you. All right, next. Now we have Town of Wareham Heinz Field. They have asked to be continuing this until February 16.
Need a motion to continue to February 16th?
Second,
I have a motion and a second. All in favor? Michael?
Aye.
Carol?
Yes.
Denise?
Yes.
Ron?
Yes.
Alyssa?
yeah.
Sandy? Yes, we're continued until February 16th. Warren, QOZB, 59 Main Street. We have a request for continuance until February 16th.
Move to continue.
Second,
Second,
I have a motion and a second. All in favor of Michael,
yes.
Carol,
Yes.
Denise,
yes.
Ron,
Yes.
Alyssa,
Yes.
Sandy. Yes, it's continued until 2/16. The next one is LSE Hydra. Wait a minute. Sorry, get rid of my paper. LSE Hydra LLC, LSE Hydra LLC. The North Carver Road project. There was a document sent out January 20th regarding the proposed riverfront restoration email. Everybody got that, I hope?
Yes.
Is there anybody here representing that project?
Madam Chair, Bob Rogers with GAF Engineering. I believe Dan Watson is here from LSE Hydra and Brad Holmes from ECR and the landowner Linda Rinta.
Wait, Dan who?
Dan Watson,
Watson. And who was this, the third one? There was
Brad
another.
Holmes from Environmental
Brad Holmes.
Conservation Restoration.
Brad
Evening,
Holmes.
everyone.
Thank you. Mr. Bichette will read to the project.
Thank you.
Yeah, so this project site is at 36, 44, and 48 North Carver Road. And the project involves the construction of a commercial solar array within riverfront area and within the buffer zone to bordering vegetated wetland and inland bank. A 990 kilowatt solar array is proposed within riverfront area of the Wewianick River and within the buffer zone to bordering vegetated wetland. 3 separate areas are proposed on the property for solar arrays, and this would occupy approximately.
Oh, okay, because I just ran out to get Allison. Before
Peter.
that, I was waiting for the host to let me in.
Peter, please
And,
mute yourself.
I was
Peter.
looking at the,
Thank you. Okay, Peter muted himself. Sorry, please continue.
So again, this original proposal stated that there would be approximately 9.7 acres of the site that would be occupied. All 3 of the proposed areas are within riverfront area. The northernmost array is proposed within riverfront area that was clear cut without permits. This location had been wooded land and was clear cut right to the edge of the river without approvals to do so. There was an updated alternatives analysis that was asked for and was submitted. And I still see that, in my opinion, the alternatives analysis is inadequate, as it only still looks at the proposed site as the only feasible alternative. Again, this is a commercial solar company that's proposing this project and does not own property, and so therefore it can look at different sites other than the subject property to try to get the work in an area that's not within riverfront area. The application also did state that there is riverfront area that was previously degraded. We had talked about getting information relative to what area would be considered degraded and what might not be. We did get a revised plan yesterday, which depicts changes to the layout of the proposed solar arrays and provides some additional information that was asked for regarding alterations to the riverfront area. The northern array proposed within the riverfront area is within that cleared area, as I mentioned. This area, in my opinion, should be completely restored and should not have any part of the project within that riverfront area section. Had this been submitted prior to the area being cut, I would have recommended that no work be allowed within that riverfront area. The revised plan also indicates the square footage of riverfront area to be fenced in for the project. The applicant is stating that they are altering less than 10% of the riverfront area, but their calculations only include the square footage of the actual panel placements and the gravel roads. The total riverfront area to be fenced in as part of this project is well beyond the 10%, which is permittable, and is probably closer to 25 to 30% of the riverfront area on the property. So there was a restoration plan that was also submitted by Brad Holmes for the site to restore the first 100 feet of the riverfront area, but not the full 200-foot riverfront area. The town's consulting engineer did review the project as far as the stormwater issues and did conclude that the stormwater portion of the project was in compliance and was adequate. There was a DEP file number that was issued for the project that stated that the project should show how the project meets the definition of redevelopment within a riverfront area. Based on the information submitted and the amount of riverfront area that would be altered to accomplish the project, and that this would exceed the max 10% allowance, I would recommend that an order of conditions be issued approving the restoration of the riverfront area, but not approving the proposed solar project under the Wetlands Protection Act and the town bylaw for not meeting the performance standards for work in a riverfront area, and also referencing cumulative impacts to wetland resource areas and to the interests of the bylaw.
Bob and company, any comments, please? I'll start with Bob.
Well,
Oh, Dan, you want to go first?
Dan would like to go first. That's fine.
Okay, Dan.
Sure, I'll address a few of the points. A few of these might be repetitive from our previous hearings. A few of these are hopefully new information for the commissioners. I think, first of all, on the alternatives analysis, our alternatives analysis does speak to off-site alternatives and what that would look like. As the commissioners are well aware, the process for a solar project can be quite lengthy. When we look at a future solar development that just is not economically a viable alternative if it would be off-site, just due to the fact that we'd have to apply for a new interconnection service, which is about a 2-year-long process. Basically, if you haven't previously started that process on a site, then it's just not a viable economic alternative. So that's the portion that does address that. I think to state that we do not completely address at all off-site alternatives is a misstatement. So that's one point I'll add. But the crux of the issue here that Dave raises is related to the northern array and as related to our calculations of the 10% development area for the riverfront for that 200-foot riverfront area. And I wanted to speak a little bit to both of those, and I'll also have Linda speak a little bit as well. Our agreement with Linda when we spoke to her 3-4 years ago was always contemplating, actually she required it in our contract that she would be allowed to do various work within the solar array itself. Most of that will be farming beach grass, putting beehives on the southern edge of some of the panels, as well as creating some transition habitat, meadow mix that would be viable habitat and support her pollinators, her bees that she has on the property. That's always been our plan and a requirement of the landowner as part of this. And so as we've looked at the development area calculations for that 10% maximum disturbance, we've really all we've done is take a granular look at what is going to be taking place on the property and what would be classified as development under that 200-foot riverfront area requirement under the WPA, and what would be a neutral or kind of status quo, or if anything, a positive impact on the riverfront, and whether those activities should fall under that 10% rule. And so when we look at the panels, the fencing, the access road, and the underground trenching that we're going to be doing, we certainly have included all of those in our development area calculations. Those are certainly commercial activities that would fall under that, and any area under those panels absolutely is not going to have your vegetative growth, natural vegetative growth, or your farming operations that would meet the agricultural standard. But for those inter-row areas that are going to be open space, if they're going to be farmed, which is our plan, and which we have an agreement that Linda is going to do that here. And if we're going to be doing restoration work and creating a meadow mix, and if you'll see that the latest memo from Brad Holmes specifically comes up with a planting plan for within that northern array that will include a specific cutting plan once a year, has specific wildflower mixes, and has specific plug plantings that we'll bring in to supplement that. We don't feel that those two types of activities fall under commercial development and fall under that 10% threshold. So all we're doing is taking a very granular look at what's happening on the property and whether or not those are commercial activities, rather than saying everything within a fence line is all going to have the same impact on the riverfront. That's all we're attempting to do here. And certainly I have other solar systems I've worked on, and probably other ones that the commission has seen, where there's not a specific plan really for what goes on between the panels. It's basically just a stabilization seed mix, focus on stormwater, and that's about it. That's not, that's basically adjacent to the panels and is part of that commercial activity. But what we're doing here is not that. We have a specific plan, and those activities are not commercial activities and don't fall under that standard under the WPA. So that's all we're asking for the commission to take a look at, is whether those, take a granular look at what's going on in the property. I'd also add that we're not fencing off more than about 2.5 acres of the property at a time. This isn't just cutting 12 plus acres, the whole site off from the wildlife passageway, 2.5 acres at a time. We're going to maintain a 6-inch gap to allow for smaller creatures to go through. So, in terms of that, I don't think that will have a significant impact on the functions of the riverfront. And then, I would add that we've got a great steward in Linda for the property, who's obviously going to, at the end of the day, this is going to be, I think, a positive, if not neutral, impact on the riverfront. Linda won an award for her plan to move some of her activities outside of the riverfront. We're taking everything out of 100 feet. We're turning a lot of agricultural activity that's within 100 feet of the riverfront, and we're converting that to a restoration plan that's going to specifically try and bring back native vegetation. I think that's a positive. And overall, I really feel strongly that this is going to have a positive impact on the riverfront. I think we comply with the WPA. I think we've addressed the violations in the northern area, and we've spent a lot of time and we're going to spend a lot of money to bring plantings to that northern area to make that, to address those issues and to make sure that that area is stable and is still, performing the functions of the riverfront that are needed. And, I hope that we're happy to answer any questions from the commission. I would like, just give it over to Linda for a minute or two, just to explain her thoughts on that. But, we really love, we're at a point where we'd love to, have a vote on this and really think about whether or not this is going to have a negative impact on the riverfront and hopefully bring this to a vote tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Linda?
I'm sorry, I
She
just had to unmute. I think I'm unmuted. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. As you can see, we started this project a very long time ago. Actually, this is going the 4th year with this particular company, but I had negotiated with 2 other companies before that, following a model established to protect farmland by incorporating renewable energy resources on the farm. And that was the model that I began building this plan for. Many of you know that I'm a farm planner. I've been writing farm plans for farmers for over 20 years. And before that, I was an open space planner. And I'm going to ask you to, or at least I guess I hope I can introduce a different perspective to your consideration. I understand that your responsibilities with protecting wetlands, and I have learned that the Conservation Commission has a position against solar on cranberry bogs and probably around them as well. I'm hoping that I can introduce a different perspective for your consideration. Let's see. Take a deep breath, Linda. Sorry, I'm nervous. Initially, honestly, I still believe that this is a very good plan. I'd like to present it as a tool rather than, and right now our community is struggling with where to site solar. We want to, our state is converting to renewable energy sources, and solar is a big one. It's an opportunity for us. I'd like you to think about this as a tool rather than just land consumptive. And I certainly care a great deal about protecting my wetlands, my farm, and the river protection. So I'm hoping I can present this as something a little different than perhaps the way that we've always thought of it, or the way that you think of it. Let's see. As a tool to protect a long-term open space, I can tell you that one of the biggest dangers to family-sized farms, and that's what this is transition from one generation to the next. And I know I've talked to you about this before, but that is one of the largest losses of open space and breaking up farmland into house lots. As one generation of farmer transitions to the next, it's impossible for these small family farms to support 2 households at the same time. And so what typically happens is they are broken up into house lots. As one, the next generation farmer can't, a solar array or even a renewable energy project has the opportunity to provide a temporary income to a retiring farmer so that the younger farmer can come in and then earn them and support the farming project as a farm. And I would like you to think of these projects as a solar lease is a 20-year rotation, and that's how I think of it. It's a placeholder. At the end of the 20 years, the technology, I'm sure, will be vastly improved, and we probably won't be using the same kind of technology, but with a good decommission bond and plan in place, though that array can come out and the land can be restored to its original position, and the farm is not broken up, it's kept whole. And so I would like you to think of it as a tool to hold open spaces together that would otherwise be broken up into house lots. I would say that a solar array 20-year rotation and house lots are forever. There's a lot of benefits to the community. One of the things that we're struggling with in our community right now is where to place these solar arrays. They're intolerable in many neighborhoods and a lot of places that they're not wanted. But farmland is a one area where it could be a workable tool to hold open spaces together. And I would go as far to say to protect resource protection. And that's what this particular plan is. And what I would hope is when these come before you, and they will, that you can see them each individually and for the value they have. This particular proposal seeks to transform 10 acres of cropland currently treated with pesticides and fertilizers to non-treated croplands, beach grass and pollinator plantings with solar panels. And the solar panels would make up the difference between intensively farmed cranberries and less intrusively farmed beach grass and bees. I already have bees. I've had bees since 1970s. Beach grass we've grown and harvested and sold for the last over 10 years. And these plants, what I would like to say is that in the riverfront area, there'd be no loss of flood storage capacity. To my knowledge, there's been no documentation of harm to groundwater or the riverfront from solar panels. And there's no endangered species habitat located in these areas. In fact, the wildlife habitat that we would be replacing it with was significantly improved for several species of endangered pollinators and bees. I can't see how you can't see that this is better for the resource to move that treated land away from the river and replace it with untreated cropland that still contributes to the farm, keeps the farm whole, and transitions the farm from one generation to the next with a temporary, because that's what a Lee solar array is, a temporary placeholder. And I hope that I hope that you can find a way to issue orders of condition to allow this to go forward. And I would like to say about that clear cutting, Dave, we've talked about this. This is harvested timberland. It's been on my 61A as timberland and cordwood. There were cordwood roads through there. I am so offended that this is objectionable. It's part of a farm, and I heat my house with wood now. So these are some of the farming activities, and I hope that you can find a way to see this project for what it is, an improvement to the riverfront and an opportunity to hold a farm together. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else like to comment? Bob, Brad, did I miss anybody?
Well, I would just say, Madam Chair, that that is our position in terms of the development portion of the project, that where you have areas of restoration, where you have areas of beach grass, where you have areas where we're planting cultivators, all those positive things that Linda wants to do and that she's mandating that the solar company do, that those should not be considered as a development, a negative development in the riverfront area. And so what we've shown with these new plans, and it's very much scaled back from the initial application, is that the solar panels themselves or the access roads, that's what we're considering development. Beach grass and pollinators and restoration, just because it's inside a security fence, should not be considered a negative development in the riverfront area.
Okay, thank you. Questions on the board? I'm going to start with Michael.
I just got a question for the board, not just for them. How far away is the other, the issue that we're dealing with? The one where we got the papers from Boston?
Up
Is it
up the street, just north of this.
just north, like not many miles north, obviously, if it's North Carver
Oh,
Road? No,
Not far.
It's the next property. It's not miles. It's just the next property north.
just feet. Okay, that's all I want to know. Thank you.
Okay, Carol.
You're muted, Carol.
We lose Carol?
No questions at this time.
Denise.
I've been doing a lot of thinking on this project. And the way I'm understanding it, it's a low profile panels, steel poles. We're definitely talking, correct?
Yes.
Okay. The trees seem to be a sticking point with this. When were these trees cut down?
You mean the ones in the northern, where the northern array wants to be, where that blue?
Correct. When was these trees cut down, and for what purpose were they cut down?
Linda,
Can I
you want to
answer the
cover?
question?
Yes, please.
They were cut down in April of 2020. They were harvested timber to pay bills.
Okay, so you obviously were viewing it as an agricultural type of tree versus just clear cutting of.
These are pine. They were white pine, and we harvested them as we have in the past.
Okay. It also seems to me that I have notes, so if I'm looking down, it's not, you have to just kind of excuse me because I work with pencil and paper. It would seem that this proposal to me has made significant adjustments to meet requirements. It also seems that this project was also supposed to benefit the renter family, and that an alternate proposal of moving it elsewhere kind of negates that help if you're moving it off her property to someplace else. So an alternate plan doesn't seem to fall into place with keeping it on the renter property. The fencing is broken up into 3 sections. It's not one huge, large fence. It's broken up into 3 sections, which allows for movement of larger animals. The fence is raised, so it's allowing smaller animals access and movement. We're removing fertilizer and other farm-related contaminants from this riverfront area. The state just wants us to embrace solar. And to me, this just seems like it's a good site and a good project to do that in. We're not sticking it in a bog, which is clearly not allowed in our bylaws. They're trying to better the area, and it seems like to an extent they are. I just think that it would be a positive move to allow this project to go forward.
Thank you. Ron?
No comments at this time.
Lisa?
Well, I feel that a lot of changes have been done to this design, and I think that's good. I think that I guess the wood, unfortunately, it was part of a harvesting of the wood, and usually there's people do cull the trees in certain areas in order to make some money. I don't know. I would like, we have to embrace solar at some point. This seems to me an area where someone is embracing solar and trying to make it better. We can't go on top of Walmart. We can't go on top of the new school and get any money for solar. So this seems like a good project.
I think just one point to clarify is the harvesting of the timber requires permits that weren't obtained. So essentially, you can't just go in and clear cut land just in the name of saying you want to harvest timber. That's not acceptable.
Yeah.
And this has not been harvested in terms of clear cutting it. There may have been a point in time in the past where some selected trees were taken out of, but you had trees in there that were 80 to 100-year-old trees. So obviously this was not a site that had ever been clear cut anytime recently. So I think that point needs to just be understood, is regardless of what the purpose or the intent was, there's still permitting that's needed for that, and there was no such thing in place.
Okay.
Were fines issued for that?
Point well taken.
Were fines issued for that?
No,
So fines would have to be issued for that, I would assume.
there is a consideration of doing work without being permitted.
Right, and the second
Yeah.
portion of that is typically if there's a new project within a riverfront area that's previously undisturbed, there's always been the push not to permit such things. Whereas just because this has been cleared now with no approvals, you're considering saying, okay, it's fine. So I think,
I'm not-
again, you're sort of rewarding a violation by allowing it to go in there.
I'm
I
not,
don't think we're saying it's fine.
Correct.
We're not happy it happened. But my point of view, what I'm thinking, it happened. They've done an unbelievable job with their restoration along the 100-foot of the wetlands, and the trees were cut. And yeah, it would have been nice. I mean, we have a project down the street here, which someone cleared 5 acres without approval, but that's another issue. Denise, we're going to say the same thing, that they've been cut. They were used, they were harvested. And yes, it was clear cut. They cut little ones and big ones, but
we also don't want to encourage that type of activity to continue. I don't know, other than fining, I mean, how we make sure that-
Restoration of the area, Denise?
Restoration, yes, and that's what they're planning, restoration, yeah.
this January 20th email memo from Environmental Consulting, I thought did one great job with putting a plan together for restoration of the riverfront. And honestly, if we are going forward to this, this will be our standard order of conditions, and everything in here will be part of that. It was just I'm very impressed. But yeah, we can look at a fine, but what are we talking about? A couple $100?
Right. I just think if we're going to put solar somewhere, this just seems like a good project to go forward with. It seems to.
Yeah. Anybody, any other comments on the commission before anybody else? Sorry, it's running late. Anybody else wants to comment on this project, please identify yourself. I'm hearing none. What would the board like to do?
Close the
Close
hearing.
the hearing and vote and make a motion?
Move to close the Move to close the hearing.
And a second.
I have a motion and I have a second to close the hearing. Heichel,
I'm actually
Carol.
against it, so you can vote me down, vote me as a no.
no, are you closing the
Closing
hearing,
the
yes or
hearing.
Oh,
no?
I'm sorry. I thought, you could close the hearing,
No,
that's
we're
fine.
just closing the hearing. Michael,
Uh,
Carol,
Yes.
Denise,
Yes,
Ron,
Yes.
Alyssa,
Yes.
Sandy. The hearing is closed. Someone would like to take a motion? Someone want to take a stab at the motion?
I'm not exactly sure. I'd like to move that we accept the proposal. What kind of conditions do we put on it?
Standard order of conditions,
With the standard order of conditions.
reference the January 20th, 2022 proposed river restoration plan.
Okay,
And the fact that it's for 20 years.
correct. Yeah, 20 years.
So that is the motion, that we accepted with the standard order conditions plus the restoration plan. That's the motion. Michael?
No.
Carol?
Yes.
Denise?
Yes.
Ron?
No.
Alyssa?
Yes.
Sandy? Yes. It passes 4-2. A lot of work went into this. And there you go. Make sure you, before anything is done, work with your paper, Bob, get your paperwork from Mr. Bichette.
Yeah, yes, thank you, Madam Chair. We still need the final site plan approval from the planning board, but we very
But
much
you can let
appreciate you.
you can let the planning board know that conservation has approved this because they can't finish it until we approved it.
Yes, ma'am.
All set?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well,
Thank you.
that one. Okey dokey. Next one is Wareham MA3 on Fairing Hill Road. They've requested continuance until March 2nd.
Are we waiting for a report on that? Is that what's going on with this one?
I don't think they said anything in their request for continuance. I know we're looking for, I know planning is looking for a hydrology report. I don't know why they continued. They didn't put a note in the email.
We're not
I
waiting.
don't think
for
they
that
did.
hydro thing. Is that correct?
It had nothing,
We don't, that hydro planning,
I don't think
whatever,
we put it,
has nothing to
I
do
don't
with
think
us,
we have,
correct?
sorry, I'm looking at my notes. We were looking for, I can't see anything in here that said we were waiting for a particular report on my notes anyway.
So we're just
So-
going to continue this to the next meeting?
No, they
That's
want
what
it to
we're
March
saying.
2nd.
So a motion to
want-
continue to March 2nd.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor? Michael?
Aye.
Carol?
Yes.
Denise?
Yes.
Ron?
Yes.
Alyssa?
Yes.
Sandy? Yes. We continue. Next hearing is Mark Connolly. Shell Lane. Anybody here for this particular project? We've had a lot of paperwork come through on this, a replanning of the dock.
Good evening, Madam Chair, and all the members of the Wareham Conservation Commission. My name is Attorney Michael O'Shaughnessy. I'm here tonight on behalf of Mark Connolly with respect to his dock filing for the notice of intent under your bylaw and the State Wetland Protection Acts. With me tonight is Mark Dibb from Cape and Islands Engineering and Brad Holmes from ECR. You really enjoyed his report, so I hope you like his report on this project as well. There's been a lot of correspondence on this, Madam Chair. The last time we were here.
Okay, Mark, give me a second. Mr. Bichette reads first, and then I'll ask you to comment on all the paperwork we've been getting, okay?
Fair enough.
Thank you. Mr. Bichette? Did we lose Dave?
No,
No,
I'm just getting the plan situated here.
Okay, is this the new one?
Yes. So this site is lot 1032B off of Shell Lane, and the project involves the construction of a pier, ramp and float within land under the ocean, land containing shellfish, salt marsh, and land subject to coastal storm flowage. The project plan has been revised since the first plan that was submitted. So now we have a 197-foot pier, ramp and float system that's proposed out into Shell Point Bay. The proposed pier system would require the installation of 10 12-inch pilings and 4 10-inch pilings for the float. Float stops are proposed to keep the float at least 2.5 feet above the bottom. Pilings would be installed with a floating barge, and there was also originally a proposal to reconstruct a stone seawall, but that has been removed from the project site plan. Also, there's a path proposed through the site from the road to the pier. It's proposed to create an 8-foot path to the 30-foot no activity zone, and then a 4-foot wide path through the no activity zone to the location of the pier. There has been some trees already cut at the site prior to any approvals. There was an eelgrass study done for the project indicating no eelgrass in the project area. Comments have been received from the Mass Division of Marine Fisheries. They state that the pier will result in the permanent impacts to shellfish habitat and associated fisheries access. The harbor master did comment on the project and stated that the project would not impede navigation, and further stated that the area is used by recreational and commercial shell fishermen. We did get a DEP file number for this project, and they do state some questions about salt marsh alterations, but I think that had to do more with the stone retaining wall work, which has now been removed from the project. But based on comments from Mass Division of Marine Fisheries, I would recommend that the project not be approved due to the permanent impacts to shellfish habitat and to the recreational value of the area and cumulative impacts to these interests as well.
Okay, Mark, your turn now.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. With respect to dock construction in the town of Wareham, your requirements are set out in section 16 under your bylaw in coastal docks. In the introduction paragraph, it goes through the impacts, the considerations, the harms. In the last sentence is very important. The last sentence says, in order to prevent impacts to resource areas and interests protected under this bylaw, any dock or pier proposed within a coastal or tidal waterway shall adhere to the following standards. And I think that's important, because if we show you folks that we meet all of your standards articulated in your bylaw, pursuant to the terms of your bylaw, we are creating no impacts. Now, not only do we assert that we meet all your standards, but in addition to meeting your standards, we're also proposing some mitigation. And I'll let Brad talk about that. At this point, I think it makes sense to have our engineer, Mark, go over the changes to the plan, and he can walk you through each and every standard in your bylaw and under the, I think it's DEP standards regarding docks as well, to show we're in compliance with it. And I think at the end of the night, you're going to see that there are no cumulative impacts to this project, and we've met our burden. And you folks, in accordance with your bylaw, should issue an order of conditions approving the work. Mark, could you jump on and walk the commission through the changes? Oh, just as an aside, one last thing. There's 3 agencies involved in this one in addition to yours. We have the harbor master, who has not indicated that he really has any concerns with this project. DMF, they're pointing out concerns, impacts, potential impacts, but they're not in opposition to the project. And most recently, we had to check with the Division of under the Natural Heritage Program, the Fisheries of Wildlife, and this does not result in a take. So I think we've done our due diligence in trying to get all of the parties who have a say here involved. And at this time, Mark, I'd like you to jump on and go through the plan, and then go through your letter and demonstrate to the commission how we meet each and every standard.
Thank you, Mike. Again, Mark Dibb with Cape and Islands Engineering. So yes, Dave outlined a couple of the changes. A couple key items that hasn't been mentioned yet. This proposal is now using 40-foot gangway sections. And what that does is we've reduced the number of piles all the way down to 10 for the project, as well as 4 around the float in order to provide float stops. And what it also does is allows us to span completely the salt marsh. So number one, we don't have to modify 1 square foot of salt marsh. We're actually removing 4 existing piles. You can see them near the edge of the project. There's 4 existing piles that are currently in the salt marsh. So we're actually creating a benefit to the salt marsh by removing those. And those gangways are at the recommended elevations. Some of DMF's initial comments, their comments are related to minimizing the impacts, and through reducing piles, we're proposing the through flow grading on these gangways. We've been able to mitigate as much as possible through design our footprint from the piers. And then the added length, which is still within your bylaw, allows the entire float and boat mooring area to adequately comply with your bylaws. This boat with the mooring, with engine down, will still continue to have 24 inches across this entire dashed mooring area. And furthermore, the engine part will be at the outer edge of the water, which has nearly 45 inches of water at low tide. And as well, this new location is out in the priority habitat area, but we did provide the letter from Natural Heritage saying that it was a no taking, and they essentially approved where that sits. Again, also in the information we provided, we did resubmit this plan to both the Harbor Master and Division of Marine Fisheries. And what I think Dave read about the Harbor Master was his follow-up review related to navigation he's okay with. And again, on the Division of Marine Fisheries information, what they responded after this revised plan was that they had no further recommendations to minimize impacts. We've done it based on the size, location of this pier. We've made every effort to minimize any kind of impacts to shellfish in the area. Lastly, we provided a rather lengthy document that, as Mike said, it outlined every one of those performance standards in your bylaws. If that's something Dave can share, I can go through each one of those with you. If the board is happy with what we submitted, we can skip that step. We do meet those things. It's up to, I'll push that back to the board if we want to go through each one of those items, as well as we provided a summary of the Mass DEP small dock and pier, a guide to permitting small pile supported docks and piers. Every single item within that document, their standards, we also showed how we meet that document as well for this proposal. So it's also my professional opinion that we do meet both the Wareham Conservation Bylaws and the Wetland Protection Act, and that this project is worthy of an order of conditions. And I think I would like to have Brad Holmes from ECR just describe a little bit in more detail as he performed the shellfish study, what we've also documented for potential additional mitigation beyond the improvements we've made to the design. So Brad, if you want to go ahead.
Good evening, members of the commission. Brad Holmes here. Thank you, Mark. As Mark described, the project has been redesigned to minimize any impacts within shellfish habitat. During our shellfish survey, we did find a moderate amount of quahogs and a very minor amount of soft shell clams within the project area. So what we're proposing to do is to work with either the town of Wareham Natural Resources Department or the Buzzards Bay Coalition to propagate the area with shellfish seed, consisting of quahogs to try to help replenish some of the quahog stock that's there. We do understand that that area is commercially and recreationally fished, so adding quahog seed to the habitat will help to increase the number of quahogs in the area. We're also proposing to purchase oysters to help, oyster seed to help improve water quality. We know that oysters are great filters of the seawater and to improve the overall water quality conditions in the area. I think the mitigation is something that is above what's required, but we want to go above and beyond so that the commission has a comfort level that we have done everything we can to minimize any impacts, and the actual proposed mitigation will greatly offset that minor amount that's associated with the pilings that are located within the shellfish habitat. The ramp and the float are obviously seasonally removed, and the structure has been designed so that shellfishing is not going to be restricted, and it will be available to be under and around the pier, the ramp, and the float. So I have reached out to the Buzzards Bay Coalition. I haven't been able to speak to them about the details, but we'll also like to speak with the Natural Resources Department, and that would be something we'd look for the Conservation Commission to craft a special condition regarding the shellfish seeding.
Thank you. Questions from the board? Michael?
I want to confirm really quick. There was in the reading there was wording about removal of pier of piles rather. That was on the piles I see on your proposal in front of me, because there was an existing pier right next to you, not that far. This pier right here that you're proposing will have nothing to do with the pier next to you, correct?
That's I'll let Mark go. Yes, there's piles that remain from a historic pier that was at the site. So those piles in the salt marsh would be removed.
Oh, okay. How old was that? When you mention historic, how old are we talking about?
This is Mark again. To be honest, we haven't tracked down any real specific information how old that was, but there's definitely 4 existing piles in that area. But you can see them. We're replacing the current proposal exactly in the same, left to right footprint as those, but those can be removed from the salt marsh.
Dave, will you take that map down so I can show Michael what these 4 pylons look like?
Oh, all right. Got
it?
Yeah, gotcha there, Sandy. Thanks.
Yeah, okay, thank you. All right, Carol.
No questions.
Denise.
You're gonna have to bear with me again with pencil and paper. Historically, this area of shoreline is active with recreational use by the surrounding neighbors and is open to both commercial and recreational shellfishing. The harbor master did state that his concern had been addressed in terms of navigation, but his concerns and ours are not the same as the Conservation Commission. The commission's integrity lies in our consistent application of our bylaws. While each project needs to be evaluated on its own merit, our commission needs to keep an eye on the health and well-being of our community and environment as a whole. The recreational value of this area is important. There are 4 docks and a 5th grandfathered in this area. We have received, in addition to that, 4 more requests for docks in this area. Each of those projects inhibits and is detrimental to the recreational value of this area. Massachusetts DMF stated that the new pier has potential to be negatively impacted, and that while some of those impacts can be avoided, others were unavoidable. Piles, floats, and adjacent footprints will likely not be accessible to commercial or recreational fisheries, they stated. The Wareham bylaws in regard to this subject matter control activities that are deemed by the Conservation Commission likely to have significant or cumulative impact upon resource area values. There's a long list of them. Aesthetics is in there, oh, good grief. Aquaculture, recreational values, things that are deemed important to the community. The bylaw is intended to utilize home rule authority and provide additional standards and procedures stricter than those of the Wetland Protection Act and regulations. I don't think I need to go into the definition of aesthetics or alter. They're talking about driving piles, erection or repair of buildings and structures of any kind, placing obstructions or objects in the area. Recreation includes and without limitation purposes for which the resource area are used by the public, such as navigation, which the harbor master has no issues with, but shell fishing, swimming, water skiing, diving, walking, etc. Historically, this is a small area of shoreline. It is active recreationally, used by surrounding neighbors, and is open to both commercial and recreational shell fishing. I don't think we need another dock in this area. I think it would be detrimental to the area.
Thank you. Mike, you have your hand up?
I do. I'd like to respond to that, because that goes to what I started with. If you're going to apply the bylaw, you need to apply the bylaw. The bylaw is very clear in what is authorized to be constructed down there, and it establishes specifications pursuant to the bylaw. If we follow the specifications and standards by the terms of your bylaw, we have prevented impacts to the resource areas. With respect to the number of docks in the area, the bylaw doesn't limit the number of docks. If that's what the town of Wareham wanted to do, the town body would have said, we are limiting to
sorry.
May I speak? May I
No,
finish speaking?
because
May I
this is
finish speaking, please? May I finish speaking? Thank you. The town of Wareham would have authorized in its bylaw to limit the number of docks in this area to X amount. I'm not a resident of the town, but that's very easily could be done. The bylaw does not prohibit docks from being installed. What the bylaw does, it provides a way by which someone who wants to build a dock has to follow a set of standards to meet the intent and purpose of the bylaw. And I submit we have. In addition to that, with respect to shell fishing, if you look at the harbor master's last letter, it says no shellfish propagation efforts have been in place in this area in the last 10 years and is not proposed in the near future. So with respect to commercial fishing and recreational fishing, there has been no efforts to do any more work in this area. And we're trying to enhance that by providing mitigation to provide some species that can be fished in the future. Now, with respect to recreational values, we are not impacting any recreational values at all. People can still fish there. They can still drive their boats. We don't impact the maritime channel. People can still swim. It doesn't prevent anything. And quite frankly, the impact to the resource area is limited to the pile area, and we're taking 4 of them out anyways. And any impact is purely offset by our mitigation.
Thank you. And Denise?
Well, I stand behind what we have said in the past with docks in this area and the control activities that are deemed by the Conservation Commission likely to have significant or cumulative effect upon the resource area values. And I think this is impacting it.
Okay. Ron, any questions?
Yeah, I mean, I stand by what I said the last time that this project was in front of us. You know, it comes down to one, the cumulative impact the amount of docks that are in that area that impact the resource area as a whole. I understand what the attorney is saying about applying the bylaw, and if you apply the entire bylaw, it gives us the ability to determine what the cumulative impacts are. And it also gives us the discretion to say yay or nay to a project based on, the facts of every agency that might give us information. And I stick by what the Division of Marine Fisheries is saying, by there being impact to the area. I understand that there are some mitigation options that they're proposing, but I don't believe that the mitigation options will offset the cumulative, and I need to emphasize the word cumulative impact, not just your project, but other projects that have been approved, have been there. So it's a cumulative impact. And that's what I'm going to stand by in this project.
Thank you. Lisa?
No questions.
Just a couple questions. You said that the ramp and float would be seasonally removed. How
That
would
is
you
right.
remove them and where do you store them?
I can answer that.
Can you answer that? Okay, thanks. Mike.
They would be removed by barge by a professional company that does that, and so they would not be dragged across salt marsh and things like that. And we did provide an upland area outside the 30-foot buffer zone on the plan to show that location. So a professional company would remove them, by whatever means they do. It'd be offloaded at a boat ramp or something like that and brought to the site and put in the upland location shown on the plan.
Also,
Sorry, I'm just looking for it.
if you look on in the ECR letter, it states 1, 2, 3, 4th paragraph down that will be removed from the waterway between April 15th and October 30th of each year.
Correct. So on the plan to the left, the overall plan, you'll see on-site seasonal storage, a rectangle.
Okay. I just don't know how they're going to get from the barge that far inland.
They truck it, basically. They put it on a flatbed and bring it over from a boat launch.
The only issue with that storage location, which wouldn't be acceptable, is that being in the flood zone, any significant tide or storm event, those things are going to take off. So typically we would want to see these things stored in an area that would not be subject to such actions. That's why we try to specify an upland area and some area that's not within a velocity flood zone.
And as you can see on the note, we do offer an off-site location. So if that's a concern of the commission, the owners would be amenable to store it, obviously pay to store it somewhere else off-site in an appropriate location if that's a concern of the commission.
Okay, thank you. And one more question. Brad, you were talking about seeding oysters. Don't they have to be attached? Don't they like to attach to things like rocks and whatever? You just can't put them on the ground, on the seabed and grow, right?
I know they do kind of broadcast oyster seed, and then you do find them, growing, in the intertidal area. But that would be something we'd work with whatever agency that's available to define it, and however they're most comfortable in doing.
Okay, thank you. Now I will ask, is there anybody that's still with us that would like to comment on this project? Maybe not. Well, Conservation Commission, do you think you've heard enough? You want to continue or you want to close the hearing?
I make a motion to close the hearing.
I have a motion and a second to close the hearing. Michael?
No.
Was that a no or a yes? Close the hearing,
Cer-
Michael.
Excuse
Certainly
me,
close the hearing, yes.
excuse me, I was having trouble getting unmuted. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. Mark, you have,
Yeah,
would you
thank
like
you.
to comment? We haven't voted.
Would.
Wait. Can someone pull back their second and their motion?
I'll pull back my
I
second.
pulled back mine.
And I'll pull back my motion.
Thank you. Now, Mark,
It was just that, when we looked around the town to buy a piece of property, we went to some areas and, over at Butler Cove and we went down and we looked and looked to the left and looked to the right and said, hey, there's a lot of docks here. There's no way you can put a dock here.
there are.
And we went over, onto the pier and looked across over that Burgess Point. Probably wouldn't be able to afford it over there anyway. And we looked and you see just dock after dock after dock. Then when we were able to go look at the property that we purchased, we walked down there and there's some existing piers and then that area, that whole cove there, it's probably over a mile long. And in that mile from over Jordan Road all the way to Lydia's Island, there's 4 docks in like a mile. So there's really not a lot of docks there. And the people, and there is no, there can be no water skiing there because it's a no wake zone. So it's not like people are water skiing and boating through there. The channel is way out and they cut through and they go over there to that Sunset Cove and they do their recreational stuff. And the people that are swimming there are pretty much myself, my daughter, and a guy named Bob Dermody who swims almost every day there. Those are like the 3 only people that you will see swimming on that side of that whole cove. So to get back to what I was trying to say is when we walk down to that water and you look to the left and you look to the right and you look right in front of you and you see that there was some piers there, you say, hey, you know what? This would be a nice piece of land. We could throw a dock up here and have our family down here and use it for recreational. So we bought it so that we could use it for recreational, not to stop anybody from using it for recreational use. And there was a comment made that some trees were cut down illegally there. And on high tide, I would have to trespass on my neighbor's yard. So me, my granddaughter, my wife, and my daughter wanted to walk down to the water. So there were some trees that were probably an inch and a half in diameter. Went down there with a handsaw and cut a few trees down so that we could walk down to the water and not trespass on the people to the left of us and the people to the right. So it wasn't like I was down there cutting down with a chainsaw, cutting down big trees. These were trees that were inch and a half diameter pine trees, just so that we could walk down to the water that we had purchased the land on to get down there without trespassing. So this was probably 6 or 8 little saplings of pine trees. So I just want everybody to be clear that I wasn't down there clear cutting the lot with a chainsaw. So that's pretty much everything that I do have to say. And like I say, they've designed the dock so that everybody can still use that area the way that they want to, but nobody does. It's an area that's all private around. You can't get to it. So it's not like people can walk in there with their coolers and their chairs and everything and hang out for the day. That's all on the other side of that cove where the onset beach is. So there's nobody that comes over to that side. So it's not like we're really, stopping people and saying keep out. It's just not that way. People don't pull up there with a boat and go swimming because it's not like the beach across the way. So that's pretty much everything I have to say, and thank you for listening.
Thank you. Yes, if anybody takes around looks at Butler Cove, I think every house has a pier and you just can't maneuver down there from one pier after another. So that's what we don't want to happen here. But that's my view of Butler's Cove and what Shell Point looks like now. Okay, Ron,
Motion to close the hearing.
Second,
I have a motion to close the hearing in a second. All in favor, Michael, Carol,
yes.
Denise,
Yes.
Ron,
Yes.
Alyssa,
No,
Sandy. Alyssa, no, close the hearing?
no, I just wanted, I wanted to say that you looked at Butler's Cove and you have no desire to go in there because it's all crowded with people, all the people who own, all the,
Sorry.
well, Butler's Cove is a place that you just mentioned, and you would not be taking your boat in there because it's so crowded, you wouldn't know which way to go. I think that one of the things, yes, you've been very fortunate and you have a private beach and a private area, but I think that part of the reason that it's so private and everything is that nobody wants to impose upon you and come and do their sunbathing on your deck or on your beach. you know?
Can we, I have to finish, sorry, and I'm voting to close the hearing. The
Right.
hearing is closed.
All right,
Who wants to take a motion?
I move that we turn down this project.
That we deny the project and the reasons?
As stated with what I was stating before, within our bylaws and within the letters from the Division of, who was it?
Marine
Environmental
fisheries.
protection.
Yes. Does that cover it?
Dave, does that cover it?
I didn't quite hear the motion. Could that be restated?
I move that we deny this project based on the statements that I made in terms of our wetland protection and in terms of the letter that we received from Massachusetts Department of, what was it, Elisa?
Division of Marine Fisheries.
Correct, yes, thank you. Is that enough?
Second,
Dave, is that enough?
Yes, I would say if that's the motion, that's
Okay.
what the motion is.
I
and that
have a
can be-
motion. All right, I have a motion to deny the project. I have a second. All in favor of denying the project, Michael,
Aye.
Carol,
Yes,
Denise,
Yes.
Ron,
Yes.
Alyssa,
yes.
Sandy, yes. The vote is 600 to deny the project.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Okie dokie. Next one is Dave Andre, 69 Great Neck Road. Is anybody here for that project? I hear none. The last note we had was field engineering on January 4th saying continued until February 2nd. Well, it's the
We
second
did,
is,
we did get a request by them to continue to the 16th. I thought that had been sent out.
okay, so there's a
Motion
The
to
request-
continue to
until
the 16th.
2/16. That's the motion.
3/16,
2/16.
2/16,
2/16, yes.
2/16, okay.
That's the motion.
second,
I have a second. All in favor, Michael, Carol,
yes.
Denise,
Yes.
Ron,
Yes.
Alyssa,
Yes.
Sandy. We're continued until February 16th. The next hearing is Wareham PV1. They requested a continuance until February 16.
Motion to continue to February 16th.
Second,
I have a motion and a second. All in favor, Michael, Carol,
Yes,
Denise,
Yes.
Ron,
Yes.
Alyssa,
yes.
Sandy. Yes, we're continued. The next hearing is George Barrett, Vern Ave. They've made a request to continue until March 2nd.
Motion to continue to March 2nd.
second,
I have a motion and a second. All in favor, Michael,
Yes.
Carol,
Yes.
Denise,
Yes.
Ron,
Yes.
Alyssa,
Yes.
Sandy. Yes. The next hearing is Dana Levy and Denise Long. They've given a request for a continuance until February 16th.
Motion to continue to February 16th.
Second.
I have a motion. I heard a second. All in favor, Michael, Carol,
Yes.
Denise,
Yes, I'm sorry.
Ron,
Yes.
Alyssa,
Yes.
Sandy. They're continued until the 16th. Now we have enforcement orders. Dave.
Yeah, so the first one is for a site at 13 Murphy Street. Scott and Tracy Denton are the owners. There's been some tree cutting work beyond the limit of work for the approved project at this site, which involved the construction of a single-family home. I was down there and happened to see that, and so issued an enforcement order to the owners. I have not received back the green card from them, let's say, signing for it. So they may not have actually formally received that, and maybe why they're not on the meeting tonight. But that is what the enforcement order was issued for, was for tree cutting work beyond the approved limit of work at that site.
And let it be known that the tree cutting was between their house and the view of Buzzards Bay. Brand
Convenient.
new house, right? Brand new house is being built, and I guess they wanted their view. We'll need a motion to ratify the enforcement order.
Motion to ratify the enforcement order.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor, Michael,
Yes.
Carol,
Yes.
Denise,
Yes.
Ron,
Yes.
Alyssa,
Yeah.
Sandy, yes. Yeah, and there's a lot next to them that someone's gonna want to build on. Okay, next one, please.
The next one is Paul Summers, 25 Oak Street. This is a site that originally we had an RDA submitted to us to construct an addition onto the front of the existing house at this site. Once work started there, there was a much larger amount of work that ended up starting to happen there, which involved a much bigger area of excavation than what we had been given for a plan and what we approved. And so there was a stop work order issued to Mr. Summers and a directive to file a notice of intent to address the much larger amount of activity that was going on there. And so Mr. Summers is on the line here to discuss the matter with us. He has picked up the notice of intent application, and I know is in the process of trying to get that filled out. The reason why he's been asked to come in most recently is because after the stop work order, there recently was some work that began on the foundation that had been put in place in terms of starting to frame up the addition. And so obviously that should not have been happening. And so Mr. Summers was contacted again and has since stopped any further work and is here to discuss the matter with us now.
And Paul, in a minute, I just wanted to let people know that on July 7, we had a enforcement order at this site. We asked that time a notice of intent be filed. We did fine both the owner and the contractor $300 each. And so here we are now that they really gutted that house and their cellar, and it's been worked on. So, okay, Paul, I done. Your turn.
Yes, good evening, Madam Chair, fellow board members. I'm not familiar with the fines that you imposed on the work stoppage as of July 7th. I'm not aware of this. I don't know where that is. I did not receive it. However, if I may go on to explain the reasoning for the continued work on the house in terms of the foundation work. We had submitted a plan back in March of last year before the board, and also the building department issued a building permit to build an addition of 13 by 26 feet with a full foundation for the addition. Upon construction, upon excavation of this site for the addition of 13 by 26 feet, we came across the existing crawl space and area inside of the crawl space that was pretty badly deteriorated. It was a hodgepodge of cinder block, cement that was deteriorating. The interior of that wall and the crawl space underneath were laced with mold, mildew. Underneath the floor joists that were there, we've discovered that that was very badly molded. The sill plates were deteriorated and rotting. And it was my decision at that time to go ahead inside the existing foundation to remove this depleted, deteriorated condition of stonework foundation, and to remove this and replace it with a full 10-inch thick brand new foundation to shore it up, to make it safe and healthy. At that time, I wasn't aware of any violation of code, Conservation Commission. I wasn't aware that, and you know, I take full blame for that. It's my responsibility. I went ahead and did it to improve this, to make it safe and make it healthy. And that was my intent, and that is my intention, to go ahead with the continued excavation of the existing crawl space, which amounted to, on the left side, 10 feet deep and 16 feet wide, roughly 4 feet deep. And on the right side, a distance of 20 feet by 9 feet, 4 feet deeper. So we basically took an existing crawl space that was 4 feet deep and extended it down to a full 8 feet. And we removed all of that molded debris, the rot. We removed the old floor joists, which were deteriorated and rotting and loaded with mold. And we removed all of that, and we built a brand new foundation. And we currently have replaced and made that we have installed the decking material, the engineered joist to span the 13 by 26, including the addition that we had taken out. I'd like to just add that in order to excavate this, was required to remove the gable end of the building. Strictly the gable end. The roof and the walls remained. We shored up the existing plates, and we were able to excavate that out with the equipment that was on hand. The excavator was in place. The carpenter, the contractor was there, and we took that down in order to get in there with the machine to remove this deteriorated products that were underneath the existing house. And again, this is all inside the existing foundation, underneath the existing house. It was pretty bad under there. And I just could not go any further and put on this brand new addition with this existing under the house that was there. This house was built in 1940. And I know there's been several additions to it over the years. You can see that in the current construction. Don't know when these additions were built, but it certainly predated my time here with this project. Again, it was ignorance on my part to go ahead without notifying the board. I didn't realize I should have done this. And we went ahead and did it with the pretense to make it better, to improve it, to make it safe and healthy. And my intention is to build a nice house there and make it very nice for the neighborhood and make it safe and healthy for myself and my family. And that's why I went ahead and did what I did. Just want to explain that to you. And if I
Thank
did
you.
something in violation, then that's my fault. It was my call. And I'll take full responsibility for it.
Thank you. Was there any work on getting a notice of intent completed with an engineer?
I just picked up the notice of intent from the Conservation Office last week. I'm in the process of filling that out.
I'm trying to remember if you were there in July 7th when we had our first enforcement order discussion.
This is the first I've heard of this enforcement order. I got the certified mail last week. This is the
No, I'm
first
trying to
time I've
think.
received it.
Dave, who was before us when we issued the fines in July?
I'd have to go back and check on that, honestly, because I don't recall off the top of my head.
Let me look at, see if I can find some notes. Just give me a second. Any board members, any questions?
When was the cease and desist issued?
The current one?
Well, no, the first one. A stop order was issued, right? Before.
That's the first you hear of it.
Yes.
All right, so when was that stop order issued?
Well, it was on a July 7th, 2021 agenda. My note said expanded clearing, need an NOI, unpermitted work of 300 for the homeowner and 300 for the contractor. That's my notes. Doesn't say who was there at the time.
Okay, so a stop order was issued and then work continued after the stop order.
No, it stopped. That hole in the ground has been there all summer long, and only a couple weeks ago did some, let's see, someone showed up and started putting some wood brace and joists in, and that's the time the planning department, because there was no, that's when Dave issued the stop enforcement order. The planning department
Inspectional
also,
services.
inspectional services, there were no approved building plans for the work to be done. So both entities said stop work.
But he was,
May I
That's
respond,
my
please?
understanding.
but was he
Sorry?
supposed to stop work back in July?
May I respond?
Well,
And
just
he
let me
did.
just let me clarify that quickly. So the work did stop with the exception of the foundation being allowed to be put in because the building inspector did not want to leave a large hole there that somebody could potentially fall into. So
And it was-
so they were allowed to put the foundation in.
But the hole
and-
stayed
and
all
ba-
summer.
and backfill it, but then it was left that way up until fairly recently when someone started framing on that.
Okay, and
Did-
this gentleman is saying that he didn't know there was a stop order?
That is correct. Absolutely. I knew nothing of any stop order whatsoever. I would have stopped dead in my tracks if I had known about this. There was no stop order issued to me. That foundation was completed as of December 7th. That foundation was in full at that time. So the footings had to have been poured prior to this back in June, and the foundation was completed midsummer. By July 7th, that foundation was in. I received no stop order from anyone. Believe me.
I think
would have
that
stopped.
I think what they're trying to reference, sir, is the most recent work that was started. That's the stop order that she's referring to. Is the
But
one
even Ron, even back at the time, Ron, there was a discussion of not continuing once that hole was discovered because there was no approval to do anything of that scale.
Okay.
And so, yes, Mr. Summers, we had a conversation on the phone back then that you weren't to continue going forward with that until you filed the notice of intent. This was going back quite a ways, but the building inspector did say that you could put in the foundation because he did not want to have the site be unsafe. there definitely was some communication telling you that you were doing something that shouldn't have been done a while ago, and you were told back then that a notice of intent would have to be filed, because we had that conversation. And when I talked to you most recently, you even acknowledged that you recalled that conversation and said, oh yeah, I was supposed to do that, but I never did.
I have no idea what the notice of intent entailed. I went ahead and picked up a set of plans. Again, I misunderstood entirely what that conversation was about, to be honest with you. I received no formal letter in the mail explaining the situation. I was never told to stop work on this site, and I continued on with the foundation. And I got
Yeah,
that done.
I think the only reason
excavation was done. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
I think the only reason the foundation was allowed to go forward is because the building inspector wanted it to go forward to make it so that it wasn't a hazard for somebody to fall into. Other than that, they even said it as well, that no further work was to happen after the foundation went in.
I have absolutely zero knowledge of that. I have never had a conversation with the building inspector. I applied for the building permit and was granted the building permit, and I was told by my builder to go ahead with the project. He had spoken to him. The permit was paid for, and continue, start your project. And that's the last contact that I am aware of with the building inspector.
Yeah, then they must have been communicating with your builder then, because otherwise, why would nothing have been done up until last week or the week before?
The reason nothing was done but up until last week is I purchased the lumber for the project. I was
Because
never
the
told to stop building the project.
Because the
It was
building
never brought
inspector,
to my attention to not go ahead and build it. I'm sorry.
Going around in circles.
I am being very honest here. Maybe
Right,
it's
but
my
the-
fault, I misunderstood, but the
yeah,
reason I was such a long time between the foundation was completed as in July. And the timeframe from July to now was I delayed purchasing the lumber because of the lumber prices are so high. I waited for the price of the lumber to come down, and I started having deliveries up maybe 4 or 5 weeks ago. And the
Okay.
builder came back and we decided we
He
put the
needed to
deck on.
come before the Conservation Commission for what?
I'm sorry?
I'm asking Dave, what was the NOI needed for? Why are we
well,
involved?
the NOI is needed because what's been actually done there is far beyond what we were presented with in terms of a plan, which was just for a small addition on the front of the house, not to totally excavate and build a whole new foundation for the rest of the house. That was never proposed to us.
Okay.
Well, hold on. The plans that were submitted to the building department that were approved and a permit assigned showed a full foundation for the addition going on. That
Oh, that
13
would-
by
okay.
26 foundation is in the plan and the building inspector has it. That was uploaded
Right,
to the town site and that is there.
Right, that may be, but that's not what was ever submitted to the Conservation Commission. The only thing you ever submitted to us was a hand-drawn sketch that you did that showed a small addition off the front of the house. There was never any proposal to do any significant work in terms of excavating the rest of the house and gutting the rest of the house. None of that was ever sent to the commission.
Well, I don't understand what happened there. I met with you at the town hall last year. I submitted the plans that you requested, 4 sets of plans, and all the plans that were submitted showed a full foundation on this addition. They were all the
Right,
same plans.
just
They
for
were
the,
runoff
just
of
for
the
the,
same plans.
right, just for the small addition, not for the whole entire house.
Yes, I agree. It showed the full foundation for the 13 by 26 edition. That is
Right.
correct.
Yes, so that's why the notice of intent is needed, because what's actually been done there far exceeds what was originally shown to us as far as what was going to happen.
Right, so he needs
Well,
to
again,
file a notice of intent. How long are
Yes.
we giving him to do this?
I just
Um,
received this in the mail. I went to pick this up a week ago Monday.
Okay,
Mr. Bichette. I have it in hand. I've contacted the engineer to go ahead. He's helping me get this thing filled out correctly. And it's my intent to follow this through with full regard to the parameters of this notice of intent. And that is.
Yeah,
my-
he has an engineer who's in the process of getting a site plan put together. So it's up to the commission. You can select the time frame as to what you think you want to see, and then we'll go from there.
And you understand at this point, you cannot do any more work until this is filed and you're approved.
Absolutely. Yes.
Okay.
As I mentioned to Mr. Plachette, I went to see him a week ago Monday. When I received this notice, the cease and desist, and he explained to me what this meant. And he asked me not to continue any construction. And I fully agreed I would not continue with any construction until the full parameters in the intent and all the ramifications and the requirements of that notice of intent have been completed.
Okay, so how long between you and your engineer do you need to get this NOI filed?
I don't know, to be honest with you. I contacted him today. He was going to get in touch with the Conservation Commission. He had a few questions. I'm not sure how long it'll take.
Okay,
So
collectively to complete this.
here's my thought is
I'm gonna give them 60 days.
I was thinking the meeting of March 16th or April 6th. Because that
Mhm.
March 16th would be 6 weeks. And then April 6th would be 9 weeks because there's three Wednesdays in March. So I don't think we should go any further than April 6th. I think that's plenty of time, especially since he's already engaged with an engineer that's already starting to do some of the work for him. I think, that April 6th being the latest date would be more than sufficient amount of time to at least get in front of us with something.
Okay. And yeah, I think that's April 6th would be a due date for filing the notice of intent. And Dave, can you check what happened to the $300 fines that were issued in July?
I'll have to look into see what happened with that.
Okay, and do further fines have to be issued because work continued or started again? in
No,
December?
I don't think so.
Okay,
But right now, the floor is done. It's no longer a hole in the ground, and there's no more rain or snow coming into the cellar.
Are you living in the house, sir?
No,
No.
the walls are not up on the house, on the new foundation. All you see is the platform for the first floor.
Yes.
you want to make a motion, Ron?
We need a motion to ratify the,
I make a motion
Enforcement
to
order.
ratify the enforcement order. Start there.
and a due date of 4/6 for the NOI.
Correct.
That's the motion.
Second,
I have a second. All in favor, Michael,
Yes.
Carol,
Yes.
Denise,
yes.
Ron,
Yes.
Alyssa,
Yes.
Sandy. Yes,
May I ask a question,
yes, Paul.
Madam Chair? If I were to receive this NOI sooner, may I go to get on the agenda sooner?
Yes,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we're giving you until the 6th. So any other meetings in between that, if you can get with Dave to get it on and he can get it on the agenda, you're more than welcome to get it on sooner, but we're giving you until the 6th as an absolute end date to get your notice of intent filed and before us.
Okay. Okay,
All right. Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
God, it's 9:45.
Okay, I have one quick thing though for us.
So we have a couple of
Wait, wait,
certificates
wait.
of compliance. We're not done yet.
Oh, gosh, okay, then I have one quick thing after that.
Okay,
So we have two certificate of compliance requests. The first one is for a project at 38 Agawam Drive, which is for a septic upgrade. The project has been completed, so I would recommend the issuance of the certificate of compliance for that project at that site.
I make a motion to accept the certificate of compliance for 38 Agawam Drive.
Second,
I have a motion and second. Michael,
Yes.
Carol,
Yes.
Denise,
Yes.
Ron,
Yes.
Alyssa, Sandy, yes. Next one.
The next one is for Roger Holmes at 8 South Water Street. This was one that we had approved not too long ago where they wanted to put a small lap pool in. This is right down in Onset. they've decided not to move forward with that project. And basically all they had done was reestablish the driveway, and everything has been done as far as that part of it. And they don't wish to proceed with the other parts of the project that were permitted. So they're just requesting a certificate of compliance because they're trying to sell the property.
Motion to accept a certificate of compliance for 8 South Water Street.
Second,
Motion and a second. All in favor, Michael,
Yeah.
Carol,
Yes.
Denise,
Yeah.
Ron,
Yes.
Alyssa,
Yes.
Sandy. I know Denise wants to cover something. Anybody listen to the selectmen's meeting last night?
No.
no,
We are budgeted for minutes in FY '23.
Yay.
But Denise has something, Denise has
23?
something else. Yeah, FY '23. But Denise has something else to say.
we met with Derek. Obviously, he did what he could do for us. We have to cover a couple of sets of minutes. If I look back at the minutes that we cover, if we each take one, we would be covering the litigation for Lydia's, and we would be covering the litigation for the solar. There's just a couple of meetings that cover that. So I think if we handle it in terms of, if we cover the ones that have legal issues ourselves, and any future ones between now and when we actually get a person that have litigation only, we still won't be in compliance, but at least we'll be covered. So what I would like to do is just assign each of you a date to cover. And that means going in and producing minutes for one meeting.
Keep in mind, those minutes are available on, the recordings available on WCTV.
Right, you have to go in, you gotta listen to the recording, and you gotta put minutes together for it.
And
Submit
yeah,
them to the-
Dave's little narrative, you can ask him to cut and copy it so you can insert it in the minutes. Right, Dave?
Well, possibly, but that could be a little bit time consuming. I am not sure how well that's
And
going to
let's
actually work.
I think if it's just one meeting, I think you can sit and listen through the darn meeting.
Okay.
And it'll
So-
be boring as heck, and it'll be a pain in the neck, but I think Derek willing to give us somebody in the future, this would be a good workaround for us.
I did send Derek a thank you note.
Oh, thank you. You guys should probably do
Sandy,
that.
Sandy, we have someone on the line who's got their hand raised. I don't know if you'd want to see what they're looking to speak about.
Well, first Denise is going to assign up the minutes.
Well, I'll email everybody. Can I just email
Okay.
everybody the date?
Yeah.
And do it that way? It'll be easier.
Oh,
Okay.
so that's so we can't say, no, we don't want that date, right?
Correct.
I see what you're
And
doing.
whoever gets that one meeting that lasted, what, an hour, gets two.
I get to go to the one I missed. The meeting I missed, I got written up. I want that one. I
Listen,
gotta
I'm just gonna-
prove it.
I'm
All
just gonna-
right.
You already
I'm just gonna
listened to
forward-
it.
I'm just gonna
All right.
forward that email to Carl, so.
Nice try.
Um,
Who wants to, somebody wanted to say
Dave?
something?
Dave, you said someone had their hand up?
It looks like Amy.
Hi,
Yes.
it's Roberts again. Guys, thank you. You're doing an incredible job. I appreciate the time you're putting in. The fact that we're coming up on 10 o'clock and you guys are hanging in there with whatever your day jobs are. But I would just say, I find it incredibly frustrating. I don't know how you feel that people can continue to just kick the can down the road with their projects and not have any insight. And I would just ask that if it's possible to rethink the process around continuing when somebody doesn't have an answer to the reasonable questions you're asking. So it's just my editorializing, but thank you all. I really appreciate your efforts.
Amy, I think we
And,
appreciate your comments, and I just want to reassure you that we are getting a little tougher with those continuances. It's something that we've been discussing of not putting up with anymore. to the extent that we have in the past. So we
Well,
are.
thank you.
moving forward in
You
that
got,
area.
you guys are doing yeoman's work, so thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, you wanted about some old ones. We gave McDuffie 90 days. There are some NOIs we gave people a due date and they have not come through on, but that's for another meeting. Okay.
So Denise got to say her little bit. Now I just gonna say my little bit.
You're in San Francisco.
Oh,
Solar
yeah,
bu-
yeah. So it's only not even 7 o'clock for me. So
Go ahead.
no, I did pick up my papers today for a nomination for selectman. So I would appreciate some support for me to get on the ballot. So if I could meet with people at certain times to get some signatures for my nomination papers, that would be greatly appreciated.
I thought you were going to talk about your solar bylaw update.
Oh, you want the solar bylaw update? I'll give you
Wait a minute, if we don't sign it, does that mean you have to stay on the Conservation Commission?
No, doesn't mean I have to. I probably would, but I would hope that I wouldn't have to rely on your signatures to get on, like to get on for election. But the more the merrier. So solar bylaw, we've had the last couple of meetings have been really good. We've gone through some really hot button topics about where things can go, sizes of solar projects. So we're making some headway. We're really trying to get something for a Springtown meeting. But we have approached the selectmen about a potential push to a special town meeting. But we're hoping that it won't get to that, but we're just trying to, we don't just want to present something just to present it for the sake of time. There's a lot of time and effort being put into it. There's a lot of work that has to be done to satisfy both sides, because it's not just our side of, not wanting to have solar. It's where it makes sense, how it makes sense. So there's a lot of hours being put in by everybody on that committee. There's I don't want to say a lot of sleepless nights, because I hope everybody's getting some sleep, but there is definitely a lot of work being put in, a lot of investigations into other areas, a lot of deep diving. We're getting closer. Every week is a better meeting, and more things are being figured out. But it's yet to be seen on whether we're going to be able to meet that deadline. We're still waiting on that date to figure out exactly when we would have to have something submitted to get on the warrant. But we're hopeful. But I will keep you updated as we move on. But we are definitely getting closer. But there are just some really fine details to continue to work out. And Carl is doing such an amazing job with those minutes. He's working hard. Many
Thank
emails.
you.
So
I will let him know that you said that.
Denise, the next topic was continuance. Were you satisfied with the discussion at the last meeting regarding continuances? So I can remove it from the agenda?
I think, is everybody satisfied that we're just gonna get a little bit tougher on these things and?
Yeah, I want to know exactly what you mean by tougher. Somebody calls
Well,
up
I
Dave
think-
and Dave says, wait a minute. And then he says, I want to continue my hearing. And do we have any power at all to do anything?
According to Dave, we have the authority to refuse to continue something. If we don't feel that they're going to be presenting any new information to us above and beyond what we've already received. Is that correct, Dave?
Yes, that's correct. Yeah.
Yes.
Anytime somebody sends a request, that's exactly what it is. It's a request.
I understand that, but
we've got to take it. It's a case by case, because there are some that are a little more, sophisticated than others and require, some deep diving for reports and things like that. But if it's somebody that's just trying to kick the can down the street, as Amy would like to say, because, they know that maybe the inevitability is that their project is going to be denied and they're just trying to linger on, then we don't have to grant that. We can close that hearing and we can deny the project just for the simple fact of, no new information has been given for us to sufficiently approve a project. But it is a case by case, but we do have that authority to not grant them a continuance and just, close the hearing and.
Dave have that authority.
What's that?
Can you say to somebody, no, I won't grant your continuance?
No, because I'm not the one voting on it. It's you commission members make those decisions. So if somebody requests that, I simply put the request in front of you folks and you decide what you want to do.
And nobody shows up to the meetings to actually see if we deny them or not. That I find totally.
Yeah.
We may just assume we're going to continue them.
Well, we have.
Well, I think in cases where, it's clear that there's a study like Ron mentioned or some other piece of information that is pending, they don't need to sit here and sit for 3 hours to find out if they're actually going to get a continuance. So I think some cases where, again, as Ron mentioned, we're just sort of not being responded to time after time, and we have no sense of why they're not coming to us, and that's a good reason not to keep on continuing the hearing.
Which
But
is what we've done.
if we know there's a study pending and we're just waiting for the results of that, we wouldn't want to tell the person, oh, no, we're not going to give you a continuance. And then we have this whole thing of an appeal, which might not be necessary if we just wait for the information.
Right. And that
Like we have Christofoli. I
Yes.
think we told them they're here. If they're not at the next meeting, it's closed, right? I think that's what we've done for that entity.
That's correct.
So we've
Yep.
notified them and they have to show up. And if they don't show
I
up.
hope we've notified them, right, Dave?
Yes, they're aware of that. Yep,
Okay,
So I think that's going to be on the next meeting, right?
yes.
that's right.
And so this is the first time first time I can remember, we've said to a project, show up or, it's done.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, folks, I don't know about you, but I just missed a soccer game in preparation for the World Cup.
3-0.
Yes, I saw that. If you've noticed, I turned around every once in a while. I was catching it. Yes. So if someone would like, unless there's something else.
Yes, there's something that I would like to say.
Oh,
on a
goodness.
personal note. I just found out I am going to be a great grandmother.
Whoa, yay.
Congratulations.
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 Thank you.
That's wonderful.
Well done. Yeah.
At 35, wow, that's amazing.
You know, I'm 56.
Nice, Ron. That's good. All right,
Motion
so
to close the meeting.
I seconded.
All in favor. Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, everybody.
Hey,
Thought it was a
Sandy.
long one.
Sandy,